Chapter 4879. In the past, they weren't afraid of Tangua and even liked to shout in front of Tangua. Since Tangua left the regent's residence, they didn't seem to dare to speak to her like that anymore. Chucho frowned. Seeing that there was no one in the shop, he said directly, "Miss Tang, no matter what grudge you have with the regent's consort, please don't implicate the two children. You're scaring them." "What did I do?" Tangua asked. "Did I scold them or hit them?" Chucho couldn't say anything for a moment. She didn't, but her expression just now. But if she talked about her expression, it seemed a little unreasonable. In short, Tanner and Exiner are both children. If Miss Tang has any grievances, you should find the right person. Boss Chu is really warm-hearted. Tangua smiled. "I hope you can always think like this." Tangua bought some things and left. She just came over to take a look. She didn't expect Chucho to be hostile to her because of the two children. She came over for another purpose, which was to let Yun Bingjun pay attention to Chucho's situation. Yun Bingjun's people would definitely report to him when she came over. As expected, Yun Bingjun received the news that day. He knew that there was some unhappiness between Tangua and Chucho. His subordinates also mentioned that Chucho seemed to be losing weight. It was said that he had no appetite recently. Yun Bingjun felt a little suffocated when he thought of Chucho losing weight. The next day, he couldn't help but go to see Chucho. Of course, he used the excuse of discussing business to invite Chucho to the tea house. Seeing the unbelievably thin Chucho, the memories that he planned to seal were opened again. "I heard that you have no appetite recently? No matter what, your health is important," Yun Bingjun said. "I asked someone to bring some appetizers over. Try it." Chucho was touched and couldn't help but say, "So you didn't come to discuss business with me, but to decide whether I eat or not?" Yun Bingjun didn't know how to answer. There was just a little difference between the two of them, but both of them knew it very well. There was no result in the first place. "Why did you come to find me? Isn't this adding to my troubles? I could have used a year or a few years to forget that memory, but once you appeared, I had to start all over again." "Chucho," Yun Bingjun called out, but he didn't know what to say. In the end, he sighed and said, "We can only blame ourselves for meeting you too late." It was precisely because of this Yun Bingjun that Chucho couldn't help but be moved. If Yun Bingjun was tempted by her and wanted to bring her back, she would not be so tempted. "You'd better go back, lest the princess consort becomes anxious. If she knew, she would definitely be unhappy." "Then what about you?" Yun Bingjun blurted out, after saying that he was very vexed. As expected, Chucho's smile was somewhat miserable. "What about me? What happened to me was no longer important. Just as you said, I came too late and I made a mistake. I couldn't resist my feelings for you." Yun Bingjun didn't know how to comfort him. When the tea turned cold, the two parted ways. When Yun Bingjun returned to the residence, Tang Shan called him over. "Shan'er, what is it?" Tang Shan took out some portraits. "I've picked some people here. I'll ask Miss Chu to come over and take a look at them. What do you think?" "Pick people?" Yun Bingjun didn't understand. Tang Shan still felt that only when Chucho was married off would she be at ease. She was really afraid that the other party would talk business with Yun Bingjun and fall in love with him. Chapter 4880. No matter what, she would not allow anyone to threaten her position. It's like this. Miss Chu has never been able to recall where she is from. Her age is slowly approaching, so it's impossible for her not to get married. I've selected some young masters from noble families. If she fancies them, you can take her as your godsister. Her status will be acceptable and no one will look down on her. Miss Chu has helped us a great deal, so how can I not care about her marriage? Yun Bingjun's mind exploded on the spot. He found that he could not accept Chucho marrying another man. "Bingjun, what do you think?" Tang Shan saw that Yun Bingjun did not answer and called out again. It wasn't that she did not see Yun Bingjun in a daze. She felt that her actions were correct. She had to pull out this thorn as soon as possible. Chucho was a potential threat. What she did not know was that Chucho was her fated threat. Yun Bingjun came back to his senses and tried to calm himself down. He tried to keep his voice as calm as possible. We still have to ask Miss Chu about this. If she is not willing, we cannot force her. How about I invite Chu Chio to the residence to discuss it? It's impossible for a girl not to get married. It's not like she's going to be a sister-in-law. Let her come over and think about it. Yoon Bing-jun clenched his fists. You handle this matter. I don't understand these things. All right, then it's settled. If she is willing, you have to take her as your godsister. That way, no one will look down on her. Yoon Bing-jun saw that Tang Shan was so enthusiastic and thought of Tangua. Perhaps it was because he felt uncomfortable. So he said, Shan about your sister, what do you and the family Tang think? She is even older than Shan Tang Shan's smile disappeared, but she habitually showed a bit of guilt. Guo wants to cut off all ties with us. What can we do? Her family probably doesn't want to care about her anymore. It's all my fault that she's living like this. Any decent family wouldn't be able to do it. In this place, which family would be willing to have a woman who could not give birth? Unless it was a small family that wanted to climb up the social ladder. Even if they went, they might not have a good life. Tang Shan was willing to make arrangements for Tangua. It didn't matter if she lived a good life or not. But Tangua wasn't someone she could control. Actually, there's one thing I didn't tell you. Yoon Bing-jun said, the young emperor is interested in Guo. Tang Shan was shocked. How is that possible? What I mean is, if the little emperor likes her, Guo won't object. It's also good to let her enter the palace. Will Guo be willing? That's fine too. It's not a good thing to be the emperor's concubine. The emperor was famous for being playful and had executed many palace maids. He would definitely not have a good life. The emperor doesn't have any concubines. All these years, he has had such thoughts about Guo. Guo doesn't seem to dislike it. There is no higher position than the emperor, I thought. The power is in my hands, so I don't have to worry about her being bullied. Tang Shan. That's true. In her heart, she thought that even if the emperor was a good-for-nothing, the ministers would still want the emperor to have an heir. Tang Guo was infertile. No one knew what she would face in the future. If the emperor married one, he would definitely marry a second one. At that time, they would be separated from each other. Then you should go. If I go, Guo will be the first to disagree. She might think that I have other thoughts. Yoon Bing-jun also had the same thought. No matter what, Tangua's surname was Tang. Chapter 48-81. He also had another idea, which was to get Tangua into the palace. Then, her every move would be under his surveillance and she would no longer be able to harm Tang Shan and his two children. Here, Tang Shan called Chu Chio to the Fu. Chu Chio was puzzled at first, but when she saw the portraits, she panicked. Then, she realized that Tang Shan probably didn't find anything. She only felt that she was a threat, so she did this. Her heart calmed down a little. She also looked at the portraits seriously. Perhaps she could really choose a man with a good character to marry. It would be a good idea to get rid of her previous thoughts. How is it? They all look dignified and have their own merits. But Tang Shan was satisfied. It seemed that Chu Chio didn't have any feelings for Bing-jun. Otherwise, she wouldn't have chosen the portraits so seriously. She couldn't help but get closer to Chu Chio. If you have any requests, just say it. I'll go take care of it for you. I can't tolerate my husband taking concubines and womanizing outside. No matter when, he can only have me. If there is such a person, I'll have to trouble Wang Fei. Chu Chio's request wasn't harsh at all. But whether it was ancient times or modern times, it wasn't easy to find such a person. It was easy to not take concubines, but not womanizing was not easy. Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Tang Shan pondered. Since Chu Chio had this idea, she definitely wouldn't have any thoughts about Bing-jun. She wasn't that anxious. On the other side, Yoon Bing-jun entered the palace. This time, he came to discuss the matter of Tangua with Zhou Jin. Emperor, it's time for you to marry an empress. This official knows that you like Guo. If you agree, you can directly make Guo empress. Zhou Jin almost couldn't help but rub his hands. Of course, he was willing. But he still had to discuss this matter with Guo. Yun Bingjun looked at Zhou Jin's hesitant and expectant expression. He immediately understood. Emperor, are you afraid that the courtiers will object? That's right. Zhou Jin nodded. It would be best if Yun Bingjun could help him solve this problem. Such a cute and capable official. He didn't know if he would be willing to help him when he gained power in the future. As long as the emperor is willing, this official can make those courtiers have nothing to say. The emperor marrying the empress is a family matter. They can't interfere. Yun Bingjun said with a domineering expression. If they want to meddle in this matter, then this subject will propose that in the future, the wives and concubines of these subjects must be examined by your majesty. If your majesty is not satisfied, then this marriage will not go through. Zhou Jin clapped his hands happily. Okay, let's do as the regent says. However, I have to discuss this matter with Guo. Yun Bingjun was not at all surprised by Zhou Jin's attitude. As long as the little emperor was obedient, it did not matter even if he was a little henpecked. It just so happened that henpecked was the little emperor's weakness. In his eyes, the little emperor was full of weaknesses. As long as the other party was obedient and well-behaved, it would be fine. Zhun to go take a look. Yun Bingjun looked at Zhou Jin's impatient expression and was in a good mood, but when he thought about how Tang Shan had called Chu Qiu to her residence, he felt a little unhappy. He also hurried out of the palace to see how the situation was. That's how it is. Do you think we should delay it for another 2 years? Or do you think we should get married? Zhou Jin grabbed Tang Guo's small hand. This is an opportunity. With Yun Bingjun helping me, we can prepare for the wedding in peace. Tang Guo realized how much Zhou Jin liked to order Yun Bingjun around. Zhou Jin didn't hate Yun Bingjun. Instead, he admired such a capable courtier. It wasn't the first time he revealed in front of her that it would be great if Yun Bingjun was his right-hand man. If Yun Bingjun could be used by Zhou Jin, it wouldn't be bad. The imperial court needed such a person. Guo, have you thought it through? Zhou Jin asked nervously. He was over 20 years old. He should be the only emperor in history who didn't have a wife in his 20s, right? Until now, he had only held her small hand. Every night, he was alone in an empty room. He could already imagine how the history books would record him. An emperor in his 20s who didn't have a wife. Tragic. System. It was indeed very tragic. Chapter 4882. When Tang Guo agreed to the marriage, Zhou Jin was so happy that he couldn't tell north from south. After chatting with Tang Guo for a while, he left, saying that he had to prepare for the wedding. Her Majesty seems to be really happy. There's no need for Her Majesty to personally prepare for the wedding, Lingyu whispered to Tang Guo. Tang Guo smiled. Let him be. He has waited for so long. Lingyu felt strange when she heard her tone. Why was Master so doting towards His Majesty? Wasn't this a little reversed? System. What's wrong with that? That's normal. Master. About your marriage with His Majesty, what will happen to the family Tang? Lingyu had been by Tang Guo's side for a few years now. Naturally, she knew that Tang Guo hated Tang Shan and the Tang family. She wanted nothing more than to sever all ties with them. It was also because of her master's ability that she could be so confident and not rely on the family. If it was another woman who suffered the same fate as her master, she would have died a long time ago. Many years ago, I had nothing to do with the family Tang. Lingyu expressed that she understood, but still said hesitantly, I'm afraid that when the imperial edict is issued, the family Tang will arrange for people to take you back. Just send them out, Tang Guo said casually. She was too lazy to be entangled with the family Tang. Their good days were still ahead of them. On the other side, Yun Bingjun returned to the residence and bumped into Chu Qiu. Seeing Chu Qiu's pale and thin face, his heart ached. Chu Qiu greeted him awkwardly, but was stopped by Yun Bingjun. He seemed to be thinking for a while. Have you picked anyone suitable? He realized that if this continued, he might not be able to control his feelings for Chu Qiu. He had never been so possessive of a woman, not even when he was with Tang Shan. After meeting Chu Qiu, he knew what it meant to be alive and what it meant to be moved. Every time he thought of this, he felt a little guilty. Not yet, Chu Qiu replied. Yoon Bing-jun unconsciously let out a sigh of relief. Even he himself did not realize how nervous he was about this matter. He was afraid that Chu-cheo would really pick someone and casually marry her off. Then take your time to choose. Yoon Bing-jun said, you must choose a good one to be worthy of you. Chu-cheo said, I'm afraid you won't be able to pick one. How many young masters in the capital don't have concubines? How many of them don't have maids? And these are all things that I can't tolerate. Yoon Bing-jun was both happy and upset. Regent, if there is nothing else, I will leave first. Chu-cheo didn't want to talk to Yoon Bing-jun in this place, lest Tang Shan find out. Yoon Bing-jun didn't stop Chu-cheo. He only watched her back as she left, and finally entered the residence. He went to look for Tang Shan as soon as he entered the residence. After Tang Shan explained the matter, Yoon Bing-jun became somewhat absent-minded. I'll leave this matter to you. It's fine as long as she's satisfied. Tang Shan, on the other hand, was quite satisfied with Yoon Bing-jun's nonchalant attitude. That's right, after the little emperor plans to marry Gua-er, I will bring this matter up at the morning court tomorrow. Yoon Bing-jun thought of the matter that he had discussed with Zhou Jin before. You and the family Tang needs to be prepared so that you won't panic when the time comes. Tang Shan, okay. Then I will inform the family Tang about this matter tomorrow. Perhaps I can use this matter to mend my relationship with Gua-er a little. The next morning at the morning court, Yoon Bing-jun took the initiative to mention that it was time for Zhou Jin to choose an empress. Chapter 4883. Zhou Jin cooperated and said, Zhen also thinks that we need an empress. When the officials saw this, they all said, I'm afraid that one empress is not enough. The emperor should choose 2 more concubines. Ever since the emperor ascended the throne, there has never been a general election. Whether it is the empress or the concubines, they are all important matters of the country. Only the general election can select the most outstanding women. Although they were reluctant to give up their legitimate daughter, it was fine to send in a concubine's daughter. The regent's power was growing, and the little emperor's body was still so strong. It was not easy for them to cause trouble. If there was a woman by the little emperor's side whispering pillow talk, then things would be much easier. Zhen is not a perverted demon. Just choose an empress. Forget about the general election. Zhen already has a candidate for the empress. Zhou Jin said. These officials really couldn't wait. Yoon Bing-jun, I wonder which family's daughter the emperor has taken a fancy to? Zhen has taken a fancy to Tang Gua. She is the regent's wife's younger sister. Zhou Jin said happily. What does the regent think? This official thinks it's good. Zhou Jin. Then this matter is settled. After the court, Zhen will issue an edict to appoint Tang Gua as the empress. Your Majesty, you can't. Sure enough, there were officials who immediately objected. Who was Tang Gua? How could they not know? She was the regent's wife's younger sister. Not many people didn't know. The incident that year had once become a joke in the capital. They also knew that it had caused such a big commotion. How could a woman who couldn't get pregnant be the empress? Looking at the little emperor's meaning, he didn't have any plans to take in a concubine for the time being. How could that be? They couldn't achieve their goal at all. The regent was really too much. He actually used his wife's younger sister to confuse the little emperor. The rumor that they didn't get along must be false. That's right. How could a woman who left her family have a good life? There must be someone secretly taking care of her. Why not? It's Zhen who is marrying the empress, not you. What, Zhen marrying the empress, you want to interfere? Aren't you interfering too much? Zhen has already decided to write an imperial edict after the court. It was the first time that the officials saw Zhou Jin acting so shamelessly. Seeing that there was no room for discussion, he was obviously captivated by Tang Gua. The officials still wanted to object, and many of them even knelt down. If your Majesty does not withdraw the order, this official will kneel here and not get up. Zhou Jin rubbed his chin. Did they think he was scared? Ministers, this doesn't seem too good. It's a bit difficult for His Majesty. Yoon Bing-jun spoke at this time. You should all rise first. "No, if your majesty doesn't withdraw the order, this old subject will never get up." Thus Yun Bingjun didn't hold back. This was originally His Majesty's family matter, but because you were dissatisfied, you wanted His Majesty to go back on his word. Since you insist on doing this, I would like to suggest that the emperor set up a rule. When the officials heard this, they felt uneasy. Every time Yun Bingjun opened his mouth, they felt that things wouldn't go well. "Your Majesty, since all the ministers are so concerned about your family, this is also a good thing. It shows that you and your subjects are one family. Today, this subject proposes that in the future, when officials of 4th rank and above take a wife or take a concubine, it will be decided by the emperor. If your Majesty is not satisfied, then it shows that they are not suitable for each other." When the officials heard this, they felt dizzy. This dog regent, they knew that it was definitely not a good thing. They hurriedly looked at Zhou Jin and found that his eyes had lit up. They knew that things weren't good, but it was too late to stop him. "Good, what a good monarch and his subjects are one family. If you insist on meddling in Zhen's affairs, Zhen can't not meddle in your affairs. This is called reciprocating." The officials, bullshit. Chapter 48-84. In the end, Zhou Jin and Yun Bingjun won the game between the two sides. It was impossible for the officials to agree. If they let Zhou Jin interfere with them marrying and taking concubines, wouldn't that cause chaos and become a joke? If he married Tanggua, then so be it. She was just an empress. In the future, Zhou Jin would take in concubines. Once the novelty wore off, they would have the opportunity to take in concubines. Right now, the emperor was still young and healthy. There was no rush. There was no harm in waiting for another 2 years. However, they didn't know that when Zhou Jin wrote the imperial edict, it clearly stated that he would only marry Tanggua as his empress in this lifetime. He would not take in concubines, and they would be together for life. Of course, Yun Bingjun had seen the imperial edict. He didn't expect the little emperor to be so infatuated with Tanggua. Thinking back to the first time he argued with the officials in the imperial court, it wasn't strange. That day, the chief steward of the palace went to Tanggua's residence to read the imperial edict. "Miss Tang, just stand and listen." The chief steward could have directly handed the imperial edict to Tanggua, but Zhou Jin urged him to read it out in front of everyone. At first, the chief steward didn't understand anything. When he read the last sentence, he would only marry Tanggua as his empress in this lifetime. He would not take in concubines, and they would be together for life. He finally understood why. He trembled as he handed the imperial edict to Tanggua. This was the person the emperor doted on the most. On the surface, the chief steward was Yun Bingjun's man, but in reality, he was Zhou Jin's man. Only by following Zhou Jin would one understand that the real Zhou Jin wasn't someone who could be controlled by anyone. On the contrary, he was decisive. Once he decided on something, almost no one could change it. But now, there was one person who could make him change. The person in front of him. Zhou Jin wanted to marry Tanggua as his empress. In less than half a day, the news had spread throughout the capital. Countless people were shocked. Some of the women who were still in their boudoirs couldn't help but feel envious. Although Zhou Jin didn't have that much power, his status was there. Now, as the emperor, he actually made such a promise. No matter what would happen in the future, at least at this moment, they were all very envious. There was actually an emperor who wanted to be with Tanggua for the rest of his life. Even if the latter half of their lives would be difficult, they were still somewhat willing. They were a little regretful. Why didn't they approach the emperor? Isn't this too ridiculous? When Tang Shan heard about this, she said to the wet nurse beside her, "That's the emperor. How could he only marry one empress?" And it's... Tang Shan didn't finish her sentence because she didn't want to talk about it anymore. Now, no matter where Tanggua went, she would remind people of what she had done, which made her lose face. To be honest, she was a little jealous. That was the son of heaven, destined to have many palaces and 6 courtyards, yet he dared to make such a decision in the imperial edict. Whatever the emperor thinks, it's just a matter of a sentence. "Princess, there's no need to worry. That person's physical condition will have many things to deal with in the future. Who knows what will happen in the future? The wet nurse said, "That's the imperial palace, not outside. It's different." Tang Shan's heart was balanced. Yes, that was the imperial palace. The little emperor was making a promise now just to make the beauty smile. Maybe that day he would hate it? Inform the family of this matter and see what they do. No matter what, she's still the empress. The family has to step in. Yes, this matter was being discussed everywhere in the capital. Of course, Chu Qiu, who was in the rouge shop, also heard it. And the madams and misses beside her were also discussing this matter. Even if their mouths were sour, one could see their envy from their expressions. Chapter 4885. Actually, this isn't a big deal. That's the emperor we're talking about. It's just a temporary promise. And Tangua is, you all know that having such a person as the empress is a problem in itself. In the future, she will inevitably worry about the emperor's heirs. When the time comes, the emperor will still have to take in a concubine. However, just the promise on the imperial edict is still enviable. Chu Qiu was also envious, but she felt that as the emperor, it was inappropriate for him to make such a rash move without considering the big picture. Such a person was not suitable to be the emperor. It would be better to be a normal person. It was a sad thing for the great Mist Kingdom to fall into the hands of the people here. Fortunately, there was the regent there. Otherwise, with the emperor's ability alone, who knew how many people in the great Mist Kingdom would be displaced? These words passed through Chu Qiu's heart, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. The people around her were all madams and misses of officials. As the saying goes, trouble comes from the mouth. She didn't dare to say it casually. Hearing the envy in their words, Chu Qiu lost interest. The emperor's action of marrying only one empress reminded her of a historical figure in her original world, King Yu of Zhou. In order to win a smile from a beauty, he played with the nobles. "Master, someone from the family Tang is here. They say they want to take Master home." Lingyu whispered in Tangua's ear, afraid that she would disturb her mood of feeding the fish. Tangua was still sprinkling the fish feed. She didn't even turn her head. The fish in the pond even jumped up to catch it. They were very close to her. "Go home? Isn't this my home? Send them away." Lingyu, "Yes, master." The people from the family Tang thought that they could take Tangua back. They didn't expect to be sent away just like that. Looking at the closed door, their faces didn't look good. They thought that it was a good job and they could get some money. No matter what, this was the future empress. They didn't expect to run into a wall. "Master, what should we do now?" She was a daughter that was almost crippled. To be chosen as the empress was a good result. In the end, she didn't want to come back. Father Tang was also very frustrated. If she didn't want to come back, they couldn't just kidnap her. No matter what, Tangua was the future empress. "Master." Father Tang finally made up his mind. "We'll go personally." He didn't believe that he couldn't bring Tangua back even if he went there himself. After all, he was Tangua's father. And so, Father and Mother Tang arrived at Tangua's residence. The door was still tightly shut. The messenger came out after a short while. "My master said that he is not seeing any guests. Please go back." Father Tang's face was a little angry. He couldn't help but shout, "I'm her father. How can a daughter not see her father?" "Call her out." "Master said that she has no father and no mother." Lingyu said with a smile. "Master said that her parents would not watch her get hurt without doing anything. She also wouldn't think of ways to give her to my elder sister's husband as a second wife." Lingyu's words made Father Tang roll his eyes in anger. "Tell her that if she doesn't come out today, she can never return to the family. Then, she's not the daughter of the family. I'm going to kick her out of the family." Father Tang said fiercely. He didn't believe that Tangua wouldn't be afraid. Lingyu said, "Then I'll go in and ask Master again." Not long after, Lingyu came out again. Master asked Master Tang when he would kick her out of the family and if he needs her to go through the formalities. If not, she won't show up. After you kick her out of the family, send someone to inform him. Chapter 4886. This time, Father Tang was so angry that his vision turned black. He angrily left with Mother Tang. She's so arrogant. Back at home, Father Tang smashed a pile of porcelain. He still had a foul breath in his heart that he couldn't vent. It was too sullen. He had been an official for so many years and no one had dared to speak to him like this. It was too infuriating. Master, I think she's just going for broke. She really doesn't want to return to the family, Tang. Mother Tang hesitated. Mrs. Tang hesitated for a moment. She probably resents us for not handling Shan-er's matter properly. Why don't we invite Shan-er over and have her apologize to her? Apologize? Do you want Shan-er to be at odds with us? The only one we can rely on is Shan-er. Her body isn't well. If you do this, won't it make her sad? Father Tang disagreed. She thinks she can compare to Shan-er after becoming the empress? Don't forget, the power of the Great Mist Kingdom is in the hands of the regent. Don't come up with such useless ideas. What if something happens to Shan-er because of this? Mrs. Tang gave up on the idea. Shan-er was their family's biggest support. Originally, I wanted to bring her back and give her a decent wedding. Since she doesn't appreciate it, then forget it. Father Tang snorted and smashed another teacup. The sound of the teacup shattering made everyone in the room hold their breaths. She thinks I don't dare to expel her from the family, Tang? Someone, invite everyone here. I want to hold a family meeting to discuss the matter of expelling Tanggua. Mother Tang, master this. With her personality, I was worried that she would cause trouble after entering the palace. It's better to expel her. You don't need to say any more. You should know what to do. Mother Tang didn't say anything else. Tanggua really didn't know how to behave. She didn't give them any face at all. After becoming the empress, without the support of her mother's family, let's see if she cries in the future. Father Tang mocked. She really thinks she's capable. 2 hours later, the family Tang sent someone to deliver a letter to Tanggua, saying that she had been expelled from the Tang Corps. From now on, she had nothing to do with the Tang Corps. By the time Tang Shan and Yun Bingjun found out, it was already too late. Everyone in the capital was talking about this matter. Naturally, the incident from back then was also being discussed. Miss Tang has already been disappointed. The main reason why she didn't return to the Tang family was because the Tang family didn't side with her. That place simply couldn't accommodate her. That person caused her to be disappointed. Tang's mother Tang's family did not say anything. I still remember that Miss Tang went to the temple to pray for blessings for that person. She pretended to cultivate in seclusion for 10 days and moved Buddha with her sincerity. Later, she got a prescription to prolong her life. Otherwise, do you think that person could have lived until now? To put it bluntly, it's all thanks to Miss Tang that I'm still alive. Now that she's going to be the empress, the Tang family wants to share the cake. How can she not be angry? She even chased them out. The family Tang is really ruthless. I don't think Miss Tang cares at all. She's been living in seclusion for so many years and hasn't relied on the family Tang. Yet she's still living a good life. Zhou Jin got someone to spread these rumors. He didn't want anyone to take the opportunity to slander Tanggua. The family Tang originally wanted to label Tanggua as an unfilial daughter. But it didn't seem to have much effect now. If their daughter didn't return home, they would kick her out. It didn't make sense. Someone even asked Chu Qiu what he thought of this matter. Chu Qiu. It's hard to say, but no matter what, they are still her parents. They shouldn't have fallen out with her like this. They should at least maintain a superficial relationship. Yeah, I think so too. If she doesn't have someone to rely on in the future, her life will be tough. She's in the palace after all. Regardless of the discussions, Tanggua and Zhou Jin's wedding was held as scheduled the following month. After getting rid of a huge burden and marrying the person she liked, Tanggua was overjoyed. She didn't care about the rumors. Chapter 4887. After the wedding, Tanggua planned to stay in the palace for a while before going out to play. There was nothing good to be said outside now. Since Yun Bingjun dealt with the problem with the provisions last time, this kind of thing shouldn't happen again for the time being. Those small countries that harassed the border were also beaten back by the soldiers sent out and stationed there. As for the locust plague that existed in Tanggua's memory, it would take some time before it arrived. Tang Shan was busy looking for people for Chuchiu. She guessed that Yun Bingjun wouldn't be able to bear it for long. She really didn't know how his relationship with Chuchiu developed. She was the only one in the huge imperial harem, so it was relatively quiet. The previous emperor's concubines all moved to special palaces to live. Other than showing up at her wedding, they didn't come out again. Those who had children were taken out of the palace to live a peaceful life. Zhou Jin, on the other hand, didn't delay attending court just because he managed to coax Tanggua. After the court ended, he immediately ran to Tanggua's place. After a month, everyone knew how loving the emperor and empress were. They could often be seen walking hand in hand in the imperial garden. The two of them were like an ordinary couple. When news of this spread outside, the commoners took delight in talking about it. There were people everywhere who said that Zhou Jin was infatuated. However, when the madams and misses of the official family discussed this matter, it was different. They were indeed envious of the emperor and empress's relationship, but they all thought that this relationship was just a flash in the pan. After the passion passed, they would have to face the problem of having children. How could an emperor not have an heir? So what if they were loving? Chuchiu heard such talk every day and thought the same. An emperor marrying a selfish woman who couldn't have children and didn't take any concubines sounded very dreamy. Not to mention the emperors of ancient society, even modern men were very realistic. Once they heard that a woman couldn't have children, even if they were married, they could divorce for this reason at any time. Chuchiu couldn't help but think, how long could this relationship between the emperor and empress last? She also encountered a problem. Tang Shan would invite her over every 3 or 5 days to look for people for her. However, she still hadn't found anyone who met her requirements. She felt that her requirements weren't high. The person she was looking for didn't need to be in a high position and naturally didn't need to have multiple wives and concubines. He had yet to find such a person. These young masters of aristocratic families were not even comparable to the emperor. Of course, Chuchiu was relieved that he couldn't find such a person. 2 months after Tanggua's wedding, the courtiers were getting restless. For the time being, they did not dare to raise this request in the imperial court. They were afraid that Zhou Jin would use this opportunity to interfere with their marriage. If he couldn't speak up himself, wouldn't they know how to use a roundabout method? If it didn't work on the emperor's side, wouldn't it work on the empress side? Tanggua found that when she went out for a walk recently, she often saw those old concubines who lived in seclusion. If they met, it was impossible for them not to greet him. They would even sit down and chat. Tanggua didn't care what their purpose was. As long as they didn't cause trouble, it was fine to chat. It had only been 3 to 5 days, but some old concubines had already exposed their targets. Behind these old concubines, there were actually some officials. Those officials probably didn't expect that they would be used one day. Empress, I'll say something inappropriate. Concubine Lu thought that she had a good time with Tanggua these days. She was considered one of the younger old concubines and was 10 years older than Tanggua. If she said something personal, Tanggua might listen. Listen, don't take it to heart. I'm doing this for your own good. Tanggua, Concubine Lu, please speak. Chapter 4888. I heard that you had an accident and can't get pregnant? When she said this, old concubine Lu spoke slowly. She always paid attention to Tanggua's expression. Any woman who was exposed would be angry out of shame. She was an old concubine without power and influence. She really didn't dare to provoke Tanggua. Tanggua was the empress. She was in charge of the entire harem. She could make her life difficult and people couldn't do anything about it. If it weren't for this matter, I wouldn't mention this. No matter how much you love the emperor, he is the emperor after all. As the emperor, he must have an heir. If there is no heir, the one who will be criticized is not the emperor, but you, the empress. At that time, everyone will think that you are jealous and let the emperor have no children. Seeing that Tanggua wasn't angry, old concubine Lu continued to speak. She looked as if she was planning for Tanggua. If you care about other women, it's better to help the emperor find a woman with a lower status. When you have children in the future, you can raise them under your name. Yes, old concubine Lu is right. You see, we old concubines who stay in the palace to retire have no children. Otherwise, we would have been taken out of the palace long ago. Tangwa didn't think that these words were too difficult to say. If she wasn't the one sitting in this position, then the emperor wasn't Zhou Jin. There would be a lot of variables in the future. However, she didn't like them to use themselves as an example. Although they were a little lonely in the palace, Zhou Jin treated these old concubines very well. They were not worse than those who went out of the palace to retire. In addition to not having so much freedom, they ate and drank the best food. The regent was not too harsh in this regard. Yun Bingjun liked to be high and mighty. He had countless shops and businesses in his hands and was not short of money. Because he didn't like it, he was afraid that someone would instigate the little emperor to be disobedient. He often cleaned up those who played tricks. Therefore, the harem during Zhou Jin's reign could be said to be the cleanest. Wasn't it comfortable to retire and live a good life? She insisted on meddling in these matters because she wanted to send her daughter in. Old imperial concubines, do you think it's not good to retire in the palace? Tangwa put down the teacup and asked. She didn't mention what the old imperial concubines had discussed before. These old concubines all thought that Tangwa had listened to them, and they couldn't help but feel happy. Humans are greedy. Once you have something good, you will want something better. You will never be satisfied. If the women in their family could give birth to a son or a daughter for the emperor, their lives would be much better. I entered the palace when I was 14, and I haven't left the palace even once in 20 years. If I had been able to give birth to a son or a daughter for the late emperor, then after the late emperor passed away, I could still live with my children for the rest of my life. How wonderful would that be? Old concubine Li said. Old concubine Li is right. Except for talking with you, sometimes I feel that the palace is too quiet, which makes me feel a little bored. I often wonder what it would be like to have my children and grandchildren by my side. Unfortunately, I don't have the chance to experience it. Is there anyone else in old Princess Li's family? Tangwa asked. Old concubine Li thought that Tangwa wanted her to meet her family. Of course, it was good, so she introduced her family. Her father was now a third-rank official. There were 2 brothers in the family. Their official positions were not high or low. The 3 sisters all married well. They all had grandchildren. What about old concubine Lu? Do you have a family? Old concubine Chun also answered. If she could see her family, then she could discuss this matter better. So, her words revealed that she missed her family. The peak. Chapter 4889. From the words of the old imperial concubines, it's not hard to hear that you all want to reunite with your family. Tangwa picked up the teacup again and took a sip of tea. Unfortunately, you have no choice. Yes, we have no choice. If we could choose, who wouldn't want to be surrounded by family and lively? Unfortunately, we don't have the chance. So, Empress, you have to think about your future. The future is still so long. Who knows what will happen? Without an heir, you really can't. We said these words for your own good. We said these because we can talk with you. If it was someone else, they would be too lazy to waste their breath. Tangwa continued. I naturally know that the old imperial concubines are not talkative people. You must be thinking about me by mentioning these things. I appreciate your kind intentions. Tangwa didn't answer what to do, but from her attitude, the old imperial concubines all thought that she had listened. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before she took the initiative to elect the emperor. She said that she would only choose one. As long as there was a concubine, it was impossible to only choose one. At that time, the daughters of their families would all participate in the election. According to their father and elder brother, the emperor was abolished, but the emperor could create a little emperor. At that time, their families would inevitably rise. They were raised from childhood, so how could they be afraid of the regent? Tangwa talked with these old imperial concubines in a pleasant manner and inquired about their family background. She remembered all the old imperial concubines who were active in this matter and wouldn't forget that they were so warmly considerate of her. Since they were so lonely in the palace and looked forward to reuniting with their families, Then she would let Zhou Jin give them a grace and send them out of the palace to reunite with their families and let them enjoy their old age. Tongzi, don't you think I'm very kind? System. Of course, they miss their families so much, so I'll fulfill their wishes and let them live with their families. I'll also give them a monthly allowance. In addition, I'll allow them to bring 2 palace maids and a mama to serve them. Even so, she knew that these old imperial concubines were actually unwilling to do this. Living in their maternal family was not as relaxed as living in the palace. At that time, not only would she not be able to complete the mission, but she would also be sent back to her mother's home. That would be like living under someone else's roof. Did they think that she was easy to bully just because she was no longer a member of the Tang family and had no family background? After Zhou Jin was done with his work, he went to look for Tanggua. When he arrived, Tanggua was reading a novel while eating snacks. Sensing Zhou Jin's arrival, he instructed, "Lingyu, hurry and pour some hot tea for Ajin." After Zhou Jin finished his warm tea, he sat beside Tanggua and rested his chin on her shoulder. The two of them read the storybook in her hand together. This kind of scene happened every day. Lingyu was already used to it. She gave Qi-Qing a look and hurried out. Qi-Qing was also very gratified. As expected, His Majesty looked much happier now that he had an empress. "Guer, I heard that the old concubines told you some unpleasant things today." "Who told you that?" Tanggua paused and raised her eyes to look at Zhou Jin. She didn't mind this, but this guy seemed to be more sensitive than her. Zhou Jin wrapped his arms around Tanggua's shoulders. "There are no secrets in the palace. All right, I'll pay attention to them. I'm afraid that they'll say something that will make you unhappy. You have a peerless divine skill. If I don't pay attention, what if you fly away because you're unhappy?" Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 4890. I've treated them well, but they're all ingrates. They just can't bear to see me doing well. Not only did they stab me in the back, they even wanted to bite off a piece of flesh from my thigh. Zhou Jin's expression was ugly. These people are too greedy. If it were any other matter, he could tolerate it for the time being, but this matter, he could not tolerate it. Did these people know how many years he had waited for this day? "Ah, Jing, I want to tell you something." Tanggua grabbed Zhou Jin's hand. "Today, I heard from the dowager concubines that they're living in loneliness and misery in the palace. They're always thinking about living with their families. The late emperor passed away many years ago, and I can't bear to leave the dowager concubines in the palace." Zhou Jin was still a little angry, but he realized that Tanggua's words were getting weirder and weirder. He didn't interrupt and listened to Tanggua continue. "Today, I want to ask for a favor for them. Jing, issue an imperial edict for them to reunite with their families. What do you think?" The dowager concubine's words today have touched me greatly. After hearing this, Zhou Jin understood Tanggua's motive. He hugged Tanggua and laughed. He even kissed her on the cheek. "Guer, you're really my good Guer. You're smart, kind, and righteous. My good wife, you're actually so considerate. After so many years, why didn't I think of this? Guer, it's fortunate that you're here. Otherwise, those dowager concubines wouldn't be able to reunite with their families for the rest of their lives. Jing is also a good emperor. He's actually so righteous. If the dowager concubines know of this news, they'll definitely be happy and grateful to Jing. System dog, these two are really dogs. If he didn't know the whole thing, he would really think that they were thinking for the dowager concubines." Tanggua took out a piece of paper from her sleeve. "I was afraid that I wouldn't remember, so I wrote down the names of the dowager concubines who wanted to go home." System dog host, you even made a name list. Zhou Jin took the name list and laughed louder and louder. Even Lingyu and Qi-Qing, who were outside, did not know what was going on. But they were not curious, because when the emperor and empress were together, every moment was joyful. They just needed to stay outside and watch the door. Not long after, Zhou Jin brought Tanggua to write the imperial edict. Once the imperial edict was written, he immediately called the head chief to announce it. When concubine Lu and the others received the imperial edict, they were very confused. By the time they finished listening to the imperial edict, their faces were already pale, and they collapsed to the ground. Old imperial concubines, receive the edict. It is also because you have met a kind-hearted and open-minded empress and an emperor who understands the greater good. Otherwise, how could you have such an honor? The people who will help you pack your luggage have been brought here. You can go back and reunite with your families before dark. Your monthly rations will be delivered to your residences by the people in the palace on time. You can rest assured as much as possible. And Exion? How could they be at ease? But could they resist? It was them who told Tangua that they wanted to live together with their families. The empress sympathized with them and mentioned this to the emperor. The emperor was wise and had even agreed to let them reunite with their families. How could they object? When the imperial edict was issued, they had no time to prepare at all. It was too fast, and there was simply no time for them to object. These old imperial concubines were able to live well in the palace. Which one of them was not smart? They understood that this was a lesson from the empress. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Female Supporting Character. Calm down. Chapter 4891. As for those dowager concubines who didn't reveal their desire to return home and didn't try to persuade Tangua, they all felt somewhat fortunate. They didn't want to disturb these peaceful days, so they didn't listen to their families. They thought far ahead. If they listened to their families, they would only be involved in disputes. They didn't know whether they could succeed or not, and they might even get themselves killed. They didn't expect that they would avoid a disaster because of their misgivings. After today, the dowager concubines probably wouldn't dare to hang around Tangua again and would retire in the palace with peace of mind. Reporting to the emperor and the empress, the dowager concubines have already been sent home. The chief steward came to report the news. The imperial edict has also been announced. Zhou Jin was very happy now. There was no way they would dare to bully his humph. Well done. Presumably, the dowager concubines will be reunited with their families and won't feel lonely anymore. Zhou Jin said again. Go and tell the other dowager concubines that if anyone wants to return home, Zhen will allow it. Yes, your majesty. The chief steward's cheeks twitched as he went back. The emperor was still the emperor. Those scheming dowager concubines were now regretting their actions. Previously, when he went to send them off, they all looked listless and full of regret. Wasn't this their own doing? They didn't want to live a good life and had to make trouble for the emperor. Did they really think that the emperor was easy to bully? In dowager concubine Lu's house, the elderly Lord Lu and her two older brothers were all dumbfounded after hearing the imperial edict. After the outsiders dispersed and they closed the door, they asked dowager concubine Lu what was going on. Dowager concubine Lu recounted what happened today. Her tone was full of complaints and she was very regretful. She couldn't return to the palace and could only stay here. It wasn't as peaceful and carefree as before. Wasn't she just looking for trouble for herself? She was really blinded by lard. How could she listen to these people and do such an illusory thing? She was really muddle-headed. Was it easy to succeed in that matter? She could already feel the disdain in her father, brothers, and sisters-in-law's eyes, but they had to arrange a courtyard for her. No matter what, she was still an dowager concubine. Even if she didn't like it, she had to stay. It was just that dowager concubine Lu didn't have the final say on what she would use, eat, and wear in the future. Old Princess Lu's good days were still to come. When the other old concubines returned home, they were almost the same as old concubine Lu, full of regret. Living in a small courtyard, how could the food and clothing be as good as those in the palace? The expressions of her family members were also not good. On the surface, this was a special honor, but anyone with a discerning eye could tell that this was a lesson from the empress. They would only be looked down upon and laughed at by others. Sent the 5 grand imperial concubines out of the palace? When Yun Bingjun received this news, he was somewhat surprised. What happened? After hearing the story, Yun Bingjun didn't care anymore. The little emperor had always been so unreasonable. He had long seen that the little emperor liked Tangua very much. He had never hidden it. Those old concubines were meddlesome. She deserved it. The little emperor had done a good job. Don't think that he didn't know that these old concubines were also incited by the family. Those officials did not achieve their goal, yet they still invited a Buddha back. How could they feel at ease? The old concubines' peaceful days were gone. How could she not complain? The two of them were enemies. There would be good days ahead of them. When some officials received this news, they all seemed to be very silent. Obviously, this empress was also very difficult to deal with. Their strategy was useless. None of the remaining old concubines wanted to offend her. After Tang Shan knew, she was worried about provoking public anger, but in fact, she was very jealous. The next day, when Chu Qiu heard the madams and young ladies talking about it, her expression was also very surprised. But soon she felt relieved. It was just a temporary liking. There was still a long way to go in the future. After all, those two were the empress, not an ordinary couple from an ordinary family. Miss Chu, the princess regent sent someone to invite you to her residence in the afternoon. She said that there is good news. Chu Qiu, got it. In the afternoon, Chu Qiu went to the prince regent's residence. Translator. Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Female Supporting Character. Calm down. Chapter 4892. It's really not easy to find someone you're satisfied with. After searching for so long, I almost gave up. Tang Shan was all smiles because she had really found someone who met Chu Qiu's requirements. His family background was not bad and he was good-looking. Most importantly, he did not have a concubine or servant girl by his side. However, Chu Qiu's heart sank. Was there really such a person in this world? For such a person to be able to produce a regent and an emperor was already very impressive. The emperor might change in the future. How could those commoners restrain her? Which family's young master is he? Tang Shan smiled. He's the young master of Marquis Ning An's family. I didn't consider that side before and only returned because of young Master Yun. He went out to study when he was 13. It's been almost 10 years now. No wonder I couldn't get any information on him. Marquis Ning An's young master? Take a look at the portrait. Tang Shan handed the portrait to Chu Qiu. The person in the portrait was indeed handsome and unparalleled. He was not inferior to Yun Bingjun. Yun Bingjun was domineering and good-looking. The person in the portrait was dressed in pure white, which made him look otherworldly. He did not look like someone from the mortal world. He looked like an immortal who had descended to the mortal world. When Chu Qiu saw it, she was stunned. Would such a person be bound by the rules of the mortal world and walk the path of matchmaking? Looks like you're satisfied. You're stunned. Tang Shan was relieved. As long as she could marry Chu Qiu off, she would be able to settle one thing. Chu Qiu's identity was too special. She was afraid that Yun Bingjun would really fall in love with her. If you don't object, I'll arrange for you to meet. How about it? Chu Qiu came back to her senses. She did not fall in love with young Master Yun at first sight. She was just stunned by his immortal appearance. When she thought about how such a person was also going to get married, she instantly lost all thoughts about him. However, she had to get married here, have a family, and get married. Only then would she not have any wild thoughts about Yun Bingjun. She was afraid that one day, she would not be able to control herself and get close to the person she should not get close to. All right, as you wish, Princess Consort. All right then. Let's arrange it for the day after tomorrow. I'll send someone to inform you when and where. Chu Qiu felt a little uncomfortable, but he didn't show it on his face. Thank you, Princess. That day, when Yun Bingjun returned, Tang Shan told him the good news. Yun Bingjun looked at Yun Jiling's portrait and didn't say anything for a while. So Jiling has returned from his study trip. I didn't expect time to pass so quickly. Will Jiling agree to this? Yun Jiling and Yun Bingjun both had the surname Yun. Of course, they were somewhat related. If one were to calculate, they should be distant brothers. When Yun Jiling was young, Yun Bingjun had even carried him. Let's have them meet first. I heard that Jiling is not here. Chapter 4893. Tang Shan was now paying close attention to Yun Bingjun's expression. If Yun Bingjun dared to show any signs of disapproval, she could not help but suspect that Yun Bingjun already had some thoughts about Chu Qiu. If Yun Bingjun really had such thoughts, she could not stop it from developing. When a man no longer loved you, there was no need to say anything. She would not allow such a thing to happen. Yun Bingjun, all right, you arrange it. Yun Bingjun returned the portrait to Tang Shan. No matter what, both of them must be satisfied. Of course, if they are not satisfied, wouldn't they be randomly matched and become a resentful couple? Tang Shan said with a smile. The nervousness from before had completely disappeared. On the third day, Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling met. Yun Jiling was even better than in the portrait. Chu Qiu and Yun Bingjun did not expect that Yun Jiling would agree to this matter. I did not expect that someone like young Master Yun would agree to meet me. Facing Yun Jiling, Chu Qiu spoke her thoughts. Yun Jiling said with a smile, "A long time ago, I have heard of Miss Chu's great name. Before I came back, I was wondering when I would be able to meet you. These years of studying outside, I have seen many things, but I have never seen a woman like Miss Chu." Chu Qiu felt that Yun Jiling had a good impression of her. Young Master Yun is too kind. No, you are worthy of it. The two of them talked for 2 hours. Yun Jiling told Chu Qiu about his experiences these years. She had to admit that this person was really good. When she asked him about his views on choosing a partner and what he thought of being together for life, Yun Jiling actually said that he envied this kind of immortal couple life. When he was speaking, his eyes were looking at her. From curiosity at the beginning to admiration now, Chu Qiu was at a loss. On second thought, wasn't she looking for such a person? After seeing so many things, Yun Jiling was really the best choice. Everything should come to an end. Perhaps, Cloud Ridge was the best choice for her in this strange world. Facing Yun Jiling's next invitation, Chu Qiu agreed. She saw that the smile on Yun Jiling's face had become gentler. She thought in her heart that being with such a person was indeed relaxing. A long time ago, someone had said that you must marry the person who likes you the most. If you can't be together with Yun Bingjun, then Cloud Ridge is indeed not bad. He was a very open-minded person who did not adhere to the secular world and did not have much prejudice against women. How could she not be happy when she was with such a person? After Tang Shan learned of Chu Qiu's thoughts, she became more and more satisfied. She had long expected that Yun Jiling would like someone like Chu Qiu. Other things aside, Chu Qiu had lost her memory and her family background was unknown. She was indeed an extraordinary woman. It was precisely this kind of woman that made her feel uneasy. When Yun Bingjun found out about the result, his entire body was covered in cold air. However, he had always been like this and no one had discovered anything. Tang Shan saw that Yun Bingjun was not very concerned about this matter and was satisfied. It seemed that Bingjun did not have any thoughts about Chu Qiu for the time being. Tanggua, who was in the imperial palace, also knew about the matter between Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling. "I heard that the two of them are getting along very well recently?" Tanggua asked. "It seems that the two of them are going to be together." Zhou Jin sat at the side and was helping Tanggua peel melon seeds. When he peeled out 20 seeds, he would use a small plate to send it to Tanggua's hand. Seeing her eating happily, he would also reveal a smile. Ever since a batch of restless imperial concubines were sent back to their parents' home to retire, the surrounding people had become well-behaved. They no longer talked about taking in concubines and having children. It should be peaceful for a while. Peak. Chapter 4894. I don't think it'll work. Tanggua replied confidently as she ate her melon seeds. Zhou Jin, you're so sure? You don't believe me? Tanggua sat up. If you don't believe me, let's make a bet. If you lose, you'll peel 10,000 melon seeds for me. Ling Yu, Qi Qing, come and take a look. The Empress is bullying the Emperor again. 10,000 melon seeds, the Empress can really think of it. Is she planning to let the Emperor peel them for the rest of his life? Most importantly, the Emperor is silly in front of the Empress. He doesn't know how to slack off and really wants to peel them himself. Let's make a bet. Zhou Jin thought to himself. Is he afraid of losing? It's not like he hasn't lost before. At worst, he'll peel melon seeds for her every day. He's quite willing to do this. System. This man is hopeless. I want to live outside the palace. It's too far to eat melon seeds in the palace. Tangwa stood up and prepared to change her clothes. Zhou Jin was a little dumbfounded. Guo, you're not going to accompany me? Can you bear to leave me alone in this cold palace? Don't you feel cold at night? Won't you feel uncomfortable without me warming your bed? Then come out and help me warm my bed after you're done. When Zhou Jin heard this, he immediately stopped objecting. He could live anywhere as long as there was a place for him under the bed. In any case, the matter of correcting the memorials was the regent's job. He was just the last one to stamp it. To be honest, he wasn't very tired. Yun Bingjun really cared about his face. He always needed him to help him finish the process. After leaving the palace, Tang Gua asked the system to keep an eye on Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling. She would often appear at the place where the two were dating and quietly watch the show. Chu Qiu was also very puzzled. Isn't this the Empress? Shouldn't she be living in the palace? Why did she often appear around her recently? Once, she really couldn't resist and took the opportunity to greet Tangua. She even asked Tangua why she left the palace. It's too stuffy in the palace. I came out to get some fresh air. It's going to be spring soon and I want to see the scenery outside. Chu Qiu didn't dare to ask why he could come out as he pleased. It was most likely because that ignorant and incompetent little emperor allowed him to do so. Who would have thought that after so long, the relationship between Celestial Empress and Celestial Empress was still so good? Even so, Chu Qiu did not think that the relationship between Tangua and Zhou Jin would last long. After all, their identities were there. The two of them were only in their 20s and had a long life ahead of them. As time passed, there would definitely be more and more problems. Miss Chu, something good seems to have happened here. I've seen you with a handsome young master a few times before. I've asked my men to stay away so as not to disturb you. Chu Qiu always felt that something was wrong. But Tangua's words were not wrong. Oh, that handsome young master has appeared. Miss Chu, please go ahead. When Chu Qiu saw that Yun Jiling had arrived, she also excused herself from Tangua. She felt a little uncomfortable staying here. Who is that lady? Yun Jiling asked Chu Qiu after they had walked far away. Chu Qiu said, It's the Empress. Yun Jiling was shocked and kept looking back. However, the distance was too far and he could no longer see Tangua's figure. In the past few days, we seem to have met the Empress a few times. Yun Jiling said with uncertainty. Chu Qiu said with certainty. Yes, the Empress just said that she was afraid of disturbing us and asked her men to stay away. You two knew each other before? We've met a few times before. We're not familiar with each other. Yun Jiling suddenly understood. Why does the Empress leave the palace every day? She and the Emperor just got married not long ago. She probably didn't care about staying in the palace and came out. The two of them have a very good relationship now. Naturally, she was allowed to come out. Chapter 4895. Yun Jiling was shocked. I didn't expect the Emperor and Empress to be an immortal couple. You don't seem to know much about the Emperor and Empress? Chu Qiu was puzzled. Different from Yun Bingjun, she realized that Yun Jiling was a very indifferent person. Power and money were like smoke in his eyes. I don't pay much attention to these things. Although he said this, Yun Jiling had already decided to go back and understand the story between the Emperor and Empress. When he understood, he also found out about Tangua's experience. He didn't know how to react when he received so much news. It turned out that the gentle and generous cousin-in-law in his eyes actually harmed her own sister. He didn't expect things to turn around. Tangua became the Empress and was very loving with the Emperor. Because of Tang Shan's identity, Yun Jiling didn't think much about this. As he interacted with Chu Qiu, he liked her more and more. He already had the feeling that if he didn't marry Chu Qiu in this life, it would be a lifetime of regret. Not long after, Yun Jiling expressed his feelings to Chu Qiu, hoping to live with her hand in hand for the rest of their lives. Chu Qiu said that she needed a night to consider. The next day, she agreed. After she agreed, Yun Jiling arranged for a matchmaker to propose marriage. Chu Qiu didn't invite anyone. Tang Shan did all this. Naturally, the matchmaker went to the regent's residence to propose marriage. At that time, Tang Shan and Yun Bingjun were both there. Tang Shan made the decision to agree. She and Chu Qiu had already discussed this matter. Naturally, she didn't have to object. Yun Bingjun sat at the side and watched. He was very angry, but he couldn't do anything to stop this. After succeeding in advance, Chu Qiu began to prepare for marriage. She didn't go to the store often. She had a group of people under her who could help her manage the business. She also had the regent's residence behind her, so no one dared to play any tricks. If you lose, they will get married in half a year. Zhou Jin was still peeling sunflower seeds. Don't worry. Even if I lose, this job of peeling sunflower seeds is still mine. Such a delightful job couldn't fall into the hands of others. They haven't gotten married yet, right? Let's wait until they get married. Even if they get married, there will be a divorce. Zhou Jin, you're being unreasonable. But it's okay, you're right. Ling Yu, can I leave? System, you can't. If you leave, who's going? Yun Jiling to invite his friends to attend the wedding. Because of this, he set the wedding date to get married in half a year's time. This way, there would have more time for him to let's chooses. 3 months had passed. Cloud Ridge's good friends came from all over the place and were all arranged to stay in the inn. Every day, Cloud Ridge would drink wine and chat with them. SSSSS to S. To her to Teat to STS. To T. Teat. S's. T2s to S. That day, he sneaked into Chu Qiu's house and caught him red-handed. The two of them met, but they didn't say much. Toot. But marriage was like this. Yun Jiling was the most suitable person for her. Do you want me to be alone for the rest of my life? Jiling is great. I'm very comfortable with him. Chapter 4896. You should leave. It's not good to be seen by others. Didn't we agree to forget everything in the past? That way each of us will be safe. Yun Bingjun, you're deceiving yourself. Then tell me, if I don't do this, what should I do? If I don't marry Yun Jiling, what kind of result can you give me? Chu Qiu really couldn't help it. Yun Bingjun didn't come, but he still came. Her emotions couldn't help but explode. He clearly couldn't do anything. It wasn't good to stay quietly in his regent's residence. Why did he have to come and find her? Yun Bingjun was indeed stumped. He didn't know how to answer for a moment. Chu Qiu pushed him out. Go! Don't come again. However, Yun Bingjun still came every night. Seeing that Chu Qiu didn't sleep late at night, he could understand that Chu Qiu's heart was filled with him. What should he do? He really couldn't let go of Chu Qiu. Tell me, what should I do? Yun Bingjun asked his confidant beside him. Master, why do you have such doubts? Since you like Miss Chu, why don't you bring Miss Chu back to the residence? Men can have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Master isn't falling in love with every woman he sees. He's just really moved. Since he's moved, why can't he be together? To say something inappropriate, Master will definitely regret it in the future if he watches Miss Chu get married. Master, can you really bear Miss Chu marrying another man? No, of course not. However, would Chu Qiu agree to be with him? Chu Qiu had always yearned for a pair. Would she accept him? Yun Bingjun's side was in a dilemma, and Yun Jiling's side was also in a situation. This Yun Jiling was with Chu Qiu when someone informed him that his best friend had come. He's the heir of the Nanqi Kingdom's Junwang Manor. We met when we were studying. He's a good person. I must introduce this person to you. Yun Jiling then brought Chu Qiu to meet the heir of the Nanqi Kingdom's Junwang Manor. Chu Qiu originally wanted to make another friend. Someone who could be praised by Yun Jiling must be extraordinary. She really didn't expect this heir to have such a deep relationship with her. When the other party saw her for the first time, He excitedly came over and pressed on her shoulder. Hui, why are you here? Hui, where have you been all these days? We've been looking for you for so long. Father and mother are still looking for you. Mother has fallen sick several times because of you. Chu Qiu was stunned. Hui, you know me? Of course I know you. If I don't know you, who would know you? I'm your big brother. Why? How long has it been? Don't you recognize your big brother? Chu Qiu was dumbfounded, and so was Yun Jiling. He knew that Chu Ding had a younger sister. He often heard Chu Ding mention her, but they had never met before. Naturally, they didn't know that Chu Qiu was Chu Ding's younger sister. However, they were all surnamed Chu. My name is Chu Qiu. I really don't know you. Chu Ding. Of course you're called Chu Qiu. What else can my sister be called if not Chu Qiu? Chu Ding patted Chu Qiu's head lovingly. You little girl, you're being naughty again. You only know how to make your brother angry. Chu Qiu was very confused. I really don't know you. I lost my memory. Perhaps the person in front of him was really a relative of the original owner. Lost your memory? Chu Ding's expression was serious. What happened? Why don't we sit down and talk? No matter what happened, let's make things clear first. Yun Jiling suggested. Okay. Let's sit down and talk. Chu Ding finally reacted. How do you know Hui? Yun Jiling. Chu Ding, our relationship might change. In the future, you should be my brother-in-law. Chu Ding. Chapter 4897. Chu Ding's arrival not only unraveled the mystery of Chu Qiu's birth, but also revealed the cause and effect. Chu Ding was certain that Chu Qiu was his sister. Another reason was that there was a mole behind Chu Qiu's right earlobe. If Chu Ding hadn't mentioned it, Chu Qiu wouldn't have noticed it herself. There was no problem with her identity. Chu Qiu recognized Chu Ding as her brother. Come back with me, Hui. The matter of you running away from the marriage hasn't been resolved yet. Chu Ding said. Chu Qiu shook her head. Even if I go back, I can't marry that person. Your family didn't force you to marry, but you ran away. You've lost all your face. It's not like they can't do without you. They just want you to go back and settle things. Apologize and don't make things difficult for your parents. Is it really just an apology? Chu Qiu asked. Chu Ding. Of course. Chu Qiu looked at Yun Jiling. Yun Jiling nodded and replied, Okay, then I'll go and take a look. Yun Jiling said, No matter what, with my relationship with Chu Qiu, I have to meet my future father-in-law and mother-in-law. On the second day after the matter was decided, Chu Qiu brought Chu Ding to the regent's residence. She said that she wanted to go home and take a look. After knowing Chu Qiu's true identity, Tang Shan and Yun Bingjun were both surprised. This was something they never expected. They didn't expect Chu Qiu to have such a background. Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling's wedding was postponed. On the third day, they returned to Nanqi together. The postponement of the wedding made Yun Bingjun sigh in relief. This period of time was really too stressful for him. Not to mention what happened when Chu Qiu returned to Nanqi. Not long after they left, Zhou Jin received a secret report. There was a locust plague in a certain place. The local officials were afraid that it would affect their performance, so they didn't report it. Moreover, the locust plague seemed to be spreading. If it was left alone, that place would have no harvest today. At that time, who knew how many people would starve to death? Tang Guo's divination was accurate again. Zhou Jin asked someone to secretly reveal this matter to Yun Bingjun. As expected, after Yun Bingjun found out, he brought up this matter in court and arranged for people to deal with it. Prince Regent, I still have something here that should be able to help us deal with this locust plague. Zhou Jin happily took out a piece of paper from his sleeve. This is a prescription that the Empress gave to me. It is said that as long as you can make the medicine according to the prescription, grind it into powder and scatter it on the ground, the locusts will not dare to come close. Even though we won't be able to stop the local losses, at least we can stop the locust plague from spreading. Yun Bingjun took the prescription and looked at it. There were a bunch of densely packed names of herbs, most of which he was familiar with. Tang Shan had been sick for so many years, so it was not strange that he knew about this. He could understand the name of the medicine, but he didn't know the effects of the prescription. He glanced at Zhou Jin and saw that he had a smug look on his face. He did not feel any wariness in his heart. It was not strange that Tanggua was able to come up with a prescription to prolong her life and a prescription to deal with the plague of locusts. The little prince couldn't wait to take it out, most likely because he wanted to show off his wife. Whether or not this prescription would work, he could only try it out. If the locust plague was not dealt with, who knew how many people would starve to death this year? In less than 2 days, someone leaked the news that the locust plague had spread. When grain merchants saw this, they immediately raised their prices. Moreover, the prices were higher and higher day by day. Even in the capital, 1 liter of grain was sold for 50 taels of silver. This was something that ordinary people could not afford. As long as they knew that the locust plague had spread, everyone was in a state of panic. Those with a bit of money in their family frantically stocked up on grain, afraid that they would not have any food to eat this year. Chapter 48-98. Of course, another reason for hoarding grain was that if the locust plague really got out of hand, they could still rely on these grains to make a comeback. Those who had the ability to hoard grain were naturally aristocratic families. On one hand, they went to places where the news had not been leaked to buy low-priced grains, while on the other hand, they sold high-priced grains in the capital. There was no loss at all. Weren't these aristocratic families backed by these officials? Zhou Jin had a headache this time, and so did Yun Bingjun. Even if the locust plague was solved, the grain prices would not recover in a short period of time. When it recovered, everyone would be poor, and these aristocratic families would be rich. I still underestimated the alliance between these aristocratic families and the officials. The news of the locust plague that day was leaked by them. At first, I thought that there would be no movement, but in the end, they secretly went to buy grain. Zhou Jin said angrily, "At present, the commoners' families should be able to hold on for a while. After a while, if we want every family to be able to eat cheap grain, the only way is to open some granaries. However, this can only be a vicious cycle. After all, the granaries cannot be fully opened, and no one can predict what will happen in the end. When the time comes, these aristocratic families and those officials will still be the winners." This was the first time Tanggua saw Zhou Jin so angry. Usually, in front of her, he was all smiles and was very shameless. She put her hand on Zhou Jin's shoulder. "Why didn't you ask me for help when you encountered such a big problem? Guo, I'm afraid you can't help me with this matter." Zhou Jin hurriedly held Tanggua's hand with both hands. "I know you want to help me. You've already helped me a lot by giving me the prescription to get rid of the locust plague. But this is grain, and millions of commoners need it. And the majority of this grain is in the hands of the aristocratic families. It's impossible for the granaries to be fully opened." With so much grain, Tanggua really couldn't help him, although he was still very touched. "Who said that the grain is in the hands of the aristocratic families?" Tanggua asked. "Jin, as the emperor, you have to remember to update the news at all times. Be careful that one day your seat won't be stable." Zhou Jin was a little confused. What did Guo mean? The bulk of the food is actually in my hands. Tanggua didn't keep him in suspense. You just need to say the word, and on the day the people run out of food, affordable food will immediately appear everywhere. She had been in this world for many years. Most of the profits from the salt well were used to purchase food. The land of the Great Mist Kingdom was fertile, and the harvest of grain was excellent. Almost every household had a lot of surplus grain. She had already sent people to purchase everything that could be purchased. From the memories she obtained, she knew that something like this would happen after the locust plague. At that time, countless people had starved to death. Especially when the plague of locusts spread to that area, countless people were so hungry that they could only die on the ground. It was not that there was no food, but these aristocratic families were not philanthropists. They would only crazily raise the price at this time, making food more expensive than gold. How many people would be able to eat it? Really? Zhou Jin was shocked. Ling Yu, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but interrupt. Your Majesty, it's true. Her Majesty has been purchasing food all these years. Your servant guessed that Her Majesty had foreseen this and made preparations in advance. Yes, Guer must have foreseen this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about those two things in advance. As the Emperor, I'm really not as good as you. Even Yun Bingjun, who is so good at scheming, didn't think of this outcome. Chapter 48-99. Guer, please decide when to release the grain. Zhou Jin held Tangua's hand. Not thinking that there was anything wrong with living off a woman occasionally. He was such an amazing man that everyone else was envious of him. Okay. I'll send a messenger pigeon immediately and get them to do it. 10 days later, a portion of the commoners started to run out of grain. No matter what, they couldn't run out of grain. They all took out their savings and planned to buy high-priced grain. When the time came, they would mix some with wild vegetable pancakes to at least satisfy their hunger. However, as soon as they reached the streets, someone was beating drums and gongs, saying that the Tang family grain merchant was selling low-priced grain. When the commoners heard this, they immediately rushed over. Because Tangua had stored a lot of grain, she wasn't afraid of selling it all out. So, the price was still the same as before. However, each person would not sell too much to the other person. Furthermore, those who came to buy grain had to bring their own identification card. Every purchase would be recorded. However, this didn't stop certain grain merchants from sending people over to buy grain. They planned to buy all the grain in the Tang family grain merchants' hands. When the time came, the price would still not be lowered. However, as the days passed, half a month went by. Not only did the Tang family grain merchant not sell all the grain in their hands, they even seemed to have a lot left. They decided to wait a little longer. They waited for another month, but the Tang family grain merchant was still the same. This time, the aristocratic families couldn't hold on any longer and started to lower the price. At first, they lowered the price a little, but later, no one cared. Seeing that the Tang family grain merchant was still holding on, and hearing that the locust plague had been resolved, and that there would be new grain in a few more months, they were afraid that the grain in their hands would be gone. So, they quickly restored the price of the grain to its original price. When they restored the price to its original price, the Tang family grain merchant disguised themselves and bought a lot of their grain. In fact, after a month and a half of selling at low prices and the destruction caused by the grain merchants, the Tang family's grain merchant was almost finished. However, there wasn't any shortage of grain. The grain in their hands should be able to last for a few months, so the Tang family grain merchant wasn't afraid. The aristocratic families naturally understood that if they didn't make a move, they would really lose everything. After the grain war, not only did the Tang family grain merchant under Tangua's name not lose anything, they even made a profit. She also used a portion of the silver to buy a portion of the grain from the grain merchants as a backup. In ancient times, food was the most important thing. There was no need to worry about sales at any time, and it was very useful. In the second year, she would sell the old grain and store the new grain. This was the cycle. She wasn't afraid of losing money, because the saltwell business alone could make her a lot of money. She didn't even know how much money she had. This was all thanks to the 1,000,000 taels of gold that he had gotten from Yun Bingjun. Who is the person behind this Tang family grain merchant? Under the candlelight, Yun Bingjun looked at the short introduction on the paper. He couldn't find out anything about the other party and was very curious. But from their actions this time, it was clear that the people behind the Tang family were different from those aristocratic families who only cared about benefits and didn't care about the big picture. It was only because he couldn't get to the bottom of the matter that he felt a little uneasy, but he couldn't do anything about it. In any case, he was someone who was opposing an aristocratic family. He couldn't afford to provoke the other party. If another aristocratic family was born, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Chapter 4900. Meanwhile, in the palace, in Tangua's bedroom, Zhou Jin was happily hugging Tangua and telling her about what had happened recently. Late into the night, his mouth was dry from talking, but he still couldn't stop. Guer, I will definitely tell the world what you've done. In the future, the people will know that you saved them. Gwr, you've surprised me. You're always so predictable. Zhou Jin sighed. Can't wait. I'm afraid that my current status isn't good enough for you. You're preparing to take action? Next year, I'll take back all my rights. Okay. With the matter settled, Yoon Bingjun looked at the news about Nanchi. Knowing that Chuchio was safe for the time being, he calmed down. He still didn't know how to face Chuchio. It was impossible for Tang Shan not to notice Yoon Bingjun's abnormality. Yoon Bingjun spent a lot of time in the study every day. Occasionally, he would stop by the autumn water rouge shop. Tang Shan finally understood that Yoon Bingjun had feelings for Chuchio. Fortunately, she had a plan in advance. Now that Chuchio had returned to Nanchi because of her identity, it was impossible for her to be with Yoon Bingjun. When Chuchio returned, she would marry Yoon Jiling if there were no accidents. At that time, the situation would be set. There was nothing to worry about. But when she thought of Yoon Bingjun having feelings for another woman, she felt uncomfortable and angry. She wanted to strangle Chuchio to death, even if Chuchio had saved her 2 children. I don't know when Sister Chu will return. It's been a few months. I miss her so much. Yoon Dan said. Yoon Xian said, yeah. Didn't she say she'd be back soon? Yoon Xian didn't see Tang Shan's ferocious expression at all. She even asked her, Mom, do you want to ask Dad when Sister Chu will be back? I miss her so much. Without Sister Chu to play with, I feel like something is missing. Yeah, Mom. Ask Dad when Sister Chu will be back. Tang Shan tried to control her expression. She patted the 2 children's heads. If you don't know, go ask yourself. Why do you have to make Mom ask? If you want to know, go ask yourself. We've already asked this morning. If we ask again in the afternoon, Father will definitely scold us. Yoon Dan said embarrassedly. So, Mother, you should go and ask. Tang Shan's face was very stiff. It turned out that she had already asked that question in the morning. Looking at the 2 children's anxious looks, it was likely that after Chuchio left, they would ask Yoon Bingjun every day when Chuchio would return. Tang Shan's heart was a little twisted. This Chuchio had taken away her husband's heart, and now she was trying to steal her child. Mother, why don't you go and ask? Tang Shan had no choice but to ask. Yoon Bingjun, I don't know. Yoon Bingjun was surprised that Tang Shan would suddenly ask about this. Should be soon. I heard that the matter over there is almost settled. It should be done in 1 or 2 months. How could he know so clearly? Tang Shan didn't flare up. After all, Chuchio was going to marry Yoon Jiling. Once she exposed the truth, she didn't know what Yoon Bingjun would do. She wanted to act as if nothing had happened and wait for Chuchio and Yoon Jiling to get married. But now, she actually didn't want Chuchio to come back alive. If Chuchio was here, wouldn't Yoon Bingjun miss him? There was a saying that went, what you can't get is the best. Yes, she couldn't let Chuchio come back alive. Tang Shan left in a daze. Not long after, she decided on one thing. She couldn't let Chuchio come back alive. Chapter 4901. A month later, Chuchio finished dealing with her family's matters and prepared to return to the capital with her dowry. She did not have a good relationship with her family for running away from the marriage, but she had already run away and could not do anything. They did not want to have anything to do with her. Chuchio did not feel embarrassed. There was no point in marrying people who did not want to be together. Tang Shan was looking forward to this day, and so was Yoon Bingjun. However, what they received was news that Chuchio had met an assassin and disappeared. Tang Shan thought that it was her people who did it, but she later found out that her people did not even wait for Tang Shan before she was assassinated. Before Tang Shan could regain her senses, she heard that Yoon Bingjun had brought troops to find Chuchio. Even her son and daughter had gone with him. At that time, Tang Shan's eyes turned black and she fainted. Ah Jin, look. Chuchio's marriage was not easy. Her previous debt has been resolved on the surface, but some people still do not want her to come back alive. Zhou Jin. This time, Chuchio is most likely dead. She won't die. Zhou Jin, Gwr is right. I have lost every time, so I won't gamble this time. Yoon Bingjun's movements were watched by countless people. In less than half a day, the news spread like wildfire in the capital. The regent knew that Chu Qiu had been assassinated and brought troops to find her. When the ladies in the boudoir heard this, they were all surprised. However, someone forcefully explained that Yun Jiling was also among them. Yun Bingjun should have gone to find Yun Jiling. 3 days later, Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling were both found. The two were heavily injured. If they had been late, they might have died. When Yun Bingjun saw Chu Qiu's dying appearance, all the emotions in his heart finally exploded. He really could not bear any harm to Chu Qiu. Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling were both brought back to recuperate. Chu Qiu was brought back to the regent's residence. After taking care of Chu Qiu, Yun Bingjun went to find Tang Shan. "Shaner, I'm sorry." Tang Shan's tears immediately came out. "You like her?" "Yes, I tried not to think about it, but I couldn't control it. These days I was afraid to hear news about her. I was afraid that when I saw her, she would already be dead. Shaner, I want to take care of her. I can't continue to ignore my feelings for her." Tang Shan's face was pale as she said, "Then why are you telling me this? You are the regent. If you want to take a concubine, do you need to inform me?" "Shaner, whatever." Tang Shan looked away. "Don't tell me these things. I don't like to hear it." When Yun Bingjun brought up this matter, she wasn't prepared at all. She didn't even know how to object. Making a scene? There was no point in making a fuss. It would only make people think that she was inferior. When Chu Qiu woke up, the first person he saw was Yun Bingjun. The first thing Yun Bingjun said was, "Cancel the engagement with Yun Jiling. I realized that I can't live without you. You already have a princess. You know that I won't be a concubine. I won't share my husband with others." Chu Qiu pushed Yun Bingjun away. "It's not suitable for me to recuperate here. Let me go back." Yun Bingjun refused, but under Chu Qiu's insistence, he could only send her back. When Yun Dan and Yun Xian heard this, they felt somewhat regretful and chased after Chu Qiu. When they returned to the manor, they were called over by Tang Shan. Tang Shan prepared to tell the two children that their father had taken a fancy to Chu Qiu and wanted to take Chu Qiu for himself. According to her understanding of these two children, they might very well hate Chu Qiu. When she told them about this matter, Yun Dan and Yun Xian looked at each other in shock. There was no disgust in their eyes. No wonder Big Sister Chu insisted on going back. It's because father's thoughts were too much. Yun Dan said, "Big Sister Chu is about to get married. Father actually had such thoughts." Yun Xian, "Big Sister Chu is a good person. Which man in the capital wouldn't be moved?" Tang Shan's vision darkened. Why were these two children's reactions different from what she imagined? Shouldn't they be very disgusted? "Mother, you don't have to worry. Since Big Sister Chu chose to return to the courtyard, she definitely isn't willing." Yun Xian comforted. "Don't blame father. After all, Big Sister Chu is very attractive." "That's right. Mother, when Big Sister Chu gets married, father will naturally dispel his thoughts." Chapter 4902. Tang Shan simply couldn't accept Yun Dan and Yun Xian's attitude towards Chu Qiu. It made her feel betrayed by the two children. She couldn't get angry or make a fuss. That wasn't her personality. She was also afraid that if she got angry, the two children would make a big fuss. In reality, in this era, it was very normal for men to take concubines. Even Yun Dan and Yun Xian were subconsciously like that. They didn't dislike Chu Qiu mainly because Chu Qiu had gone through hardships with them. Chu Qiu was an extraordinary woman in their eyes. It wasn't strange for Yun Bingjun to be attracted to such a woman. Didn't the two of them also admire Chu Qiu? The second reason was that Tang Shan was still by their side. They were gradually growing up and weren't 5-year-old children who were afraid of losing their mother. Moreover, the life-prolonging prescription was their reassurance. Tang Shan and Chu Qiu were very good to them. If Yun Bingjun really wanted to be with Chu Qiu, they wouldn't think that they were being bullied. Tang Shan was so angry that she had a heart attack. Yun Dan and Yun Xian left with a look of indifference. After comforting Tang Shan, they went to comfort Chu Qiu. When Tang Shan heard this, She painfully clutched her heart. Dan and Exian have learned bad things from others. They must have learned bad things from Chucho for the two children to think that Chucho was good. She could tell that if Bingjun really wanted to marry Chucho, the two children wouldn't be too opposed. To her, this was simply the end of the world. Tang Shan felt that she had been betrayed by everyone. Chucho couldn't stay. Regardless of whether she and Yun Bingjun would be together, for the two children, she couldn't let Chucho live in this world. It just so happened that there were people in southern Qi who wanted Chucho's life. She would beat them at their own game and help them take Chucho's life. Moreover, Yun Dan and Yun Exian came to Chucho's house to comfort her. Their father was just being selfish. As they comforted her, they found that Chucho didn't seem too happy. They didn't understand what was going on. For several days, the two of them came to see Chucho, afraid that something would happen to her. Yun Exian was very attentive and quickly saw that Chucho actually liked Yun Bingjun. "Is what you said true?" Yun Dan asked in surprise. At this moment, they were hiding in a room and discussing this matter. Yun Exian affirmed, "It's true. Haven't you noticed that father has been going to Big Sister Chu's courtyard very frequently recently, and the way Big Sister Chu looks at father is very strange? No wonder. I knew they were acting weird when they were together. I can feel that father seems to have a lot to say to Sister Chu, but Sister Chu seems to be avoiding him." Yun Exian, "Of course. Big Sister Chu is about to get married, so she naturally has to restrain herself. Our father is different. He's in a high position and has a lot of power. If he likes Big Sister Chu, of course he'll look at her openly. As for Sister Chu, she likes father, but she can't express it. Since Sister Chu likes father, why did she marry Uncle Jiling?" Yun Dan asked another key question. Yun Exian shook her head. "I don't know about that. I'll have to ask Big Sister Chu." "Go ahead. You and Big Sister Chu are both women, so it's easy for you to explain. No matter what, I don't want to see Sister Chu unhappy. Father has been very unhappy recently. I say Big Sister Chu is actually a good person. If she really likes father, why can't she come to live in the prince's mansion?" Chapter 4903. Yun Exian agreed. "Yes. Doesn't mother like Sister Chu very much too?" The two of them didn't even consider that Tang Shan was unwilling. Under Yun Exian's countless pestering, Chucho finally told her the truth. She told her that her marriage to Yun Jiling was just to escape this relationship that she shouldn't have. She liked the feeling of being together, not sharing her husband with others. "But you don't like Uncle Jiling. Will you really be happy after you get married?" Yun Exian asked. "Sister Chu, I can already feel your unhappiness. You're still young and don't understand these things. If your mother knew, she would definitely be sad." Yun Exian shook her head. "No, mother also likes Sister Chu very much." Chucho didn't take Yun Exian's words to heart. Since she had talked so much with Yun Exian, she was also willing to talk about her own matters with her. As she chatted with Yun Exian, Chucho even had a feeling that her relationship with Yun Bingjun wasn't supposed to be like this. What Chucho didn't know was that the assassins arranged by Tang Shan had already quietly approached to take her life. Half a month before her wedding, Chucho went to the temple to burn incense and encountered the assassins on the way back. Tang Shan didn't expect that Yun Bingjun would secretly go to pick up Chucho and happen to encounter such a scene. The assassins were all wiped out and one was even captured alive. "Father, did you get the results from the interrogation?" Yun Dan and Yun Exian hurriedly asked Yun Bingjun. "Is it someone from Nanchi?" They also knew that Chucho had some grudges with a certain family in Nanchi, so they asked. "Yes." Yun Bingjun lightly replied. "Someone from that side." In reality, it wasn't. The results of the interrogation were too shocking. It was someone arranged by Tang Shan. That person did indeed want to pretend to be someone from Nanchi, but unfortunately, his accent betrayed him. After being forced to confess under torture, he finally confessed his origin. Yun Bingjun knew why Tang Shan did this, so he didn't blame her and even took the initiative to hide this fact. The day before Chucho's wedding, Yoon Exine came to find her again and asked if she had really decided. Chu Chio, I've already decided. In the afternoon, Chu Ding also came to find Chu Chio. I can see that the person you like is actually Yoon Bingjun. Didn't you run away from the marriage because you didn't like the young duke? Now, you've chosen someone you don't like. Jiling treats me very well, Chu Chio said. Chu Ding said, to be honest, the young duke treated you well back then. No matter how you look at it, you're the one who let him down. Running away from the wedding day made him lose face. It's different this time. Chu Ding sighed. Hui. I hope you can consider it carefully. If you really like Yoon Bingjun with your status, we can ask His Majesty to make an appearance and let Yoon Bingjun marry you as a co-wife. Your status will not be lower than the regent's consort. I've already inquired about it. The regent has more power than the emperor, and he's also infatuated. You're so good, so it's inevitable that he's moved by you. Marrying him, it's not too bad. It's better than marrying someone you don't like. I know your personality. If you don't like Jiling, I'm afraid you won't be happy in the future. Hui, after today you can't go back on your word. At night, Yoon Bingjun also came to find Chu Chio. He asked Chu Chio if she could change her mind. If she was willing, she would be his co-wife. The moment he knew that Tang Shan had acted against Chu Chio, Yoon Bingjun had made this decision. The latest website, to download the latest TXT ebook, please click. To read this book on mobile, to post a review, to make it easier for you to read it next time, you can click on the Save button at the bottom to record this reading. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it. Please recommend this book to your friends. Thank you for your support. Chapter 4904. Chu Chio naturally refused. Yoon Bingjun also left and said that he would leave the capital that night to deal with some matters. He would return after a while and would not attend her wedding as he was afraid that he would be reminded of the past. The night was long and many people could not sleep. Some were so worried that they could not sleep, while others were so excited that they could not sleep. There were also 2 people in the imperial palace who were too excited to fall asleep. Yoon Bingjun left the capital that night. It seems that Chu Chio and Yoon Jiling's wedding is set in stone. Tang Gua shook her head. Are you sure? Could there be any changes? Chu Chio would not run away from the wedding, right? Yoon Bingjun is not in the capital and no one will disturb her. She and Yoon Jiling will most likely get married. Tang Gua placed down a chess piece. I still feel that things are not over yet. Whether or not it will succeed will depend on tomorrow afternoon. The next day, Chu Chio sat on the bridal sedan and was carried in the direction of the Marquis Ning, an estate. Zhou Jin, who came out from the palace to watch the show, saw this and smiled as he leaned close to Tang Gua's ear. Look, she got on the bridal sedan. Hasn't the wedding ceremony yet? You can really sit still. In my opinion, today's wedding will succeed. Zhou Jin felt that it was impossible for it not to succeed. Let's continue watching. Tang Gua was as steady as Mount Tai. Zhou Jin did not know what the male lead and female lead were. Chu Chio's wedding would probably not succeed. Moreover, Yoon Bingjun leaving the capital that night was really nonsensical. It was definitely not something important and he most likely had his own plans. However, she could not guess what Yoon Bingjun was planning. The bridal sedan is at the entrance of the Marquis Ning, an estate. She was asked to get off the bridal sedan. She was led in by Yoon Jiling. The wedding ceremony is about to begin. Zhou Jin clenched his fists excitedly. You're definitely going to lose this time. But don't worry, I'll peel those 10,000 melon seeds. I won't let anyone else do this job. Tang Gua was amused. Ling Yu couldn't help but cover her mouth and snicker. His Majesty would only be so childish when he was beside Her Highness. Qi Qing's face was about to break from all the slapping. In any case, His Majesty in front of Her Highness couldn't bear to look at him. He would just be a block of wood and pretend not to know him. It's time to pay respects to your parents. This time, Zhou Jin and Tang Gua were lying on the roof to watch. No one would have thought that the emperor and empress of the Great Mist Kingdom were actually hiding on the roof to watch. No one would have believed it if word got out. But this was the truth. Guer, it's time for the second bow. Zhou Jin loosened his fists and reached out to hold Tang Gua. You've beaten me so many times. It's nothing to lose once, right? Even if you lose, there will still be a reward, right? System. This guy is hilarious. He's too funny. It was about to be the third bow. If the ceremony was successful, then Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling would be a real husband and wife. Zhou Jin held the lead and looked down seriously. Just as Chu Qiu and Yun Jiling were about to bow to each other, there was a sudden commotion outside. Wait! Miss Chu, wait! Someone rushed in from outside. Even the people from Marquis Ning, Anne's residence, couldn't stop him. That person rushed to Chu Qiu's side. Miss Chu, listen to me. It won't be too late to bow to each other after I finish speaking. It will only take a moment. Chu Qiu recognized this person's voice. Wasn't he Yun Bingjuan's trusted aide? She took off the veil and saw a badly mutilated person. At that moment, her mind exploded. Did something happen to Yun Bingjun? New website. To download the latest TXT ebook, please click. To read this book on mobile. To post a review. To make it easier for you to read this book next time, you can click on the Save button at the bottom to record this book. You will be able to see it the next time you open your bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends. Thank you for your support. Chapter 4905. What's the matter? Chu Qiu asked. That person approached her and said in a low voice that only the two of them could hear. Prince Regent is seriously injured. I don't know if he can see Miss Chu. This lowly one came secretly. I don't want Prince to have any regrets. How can that be? How could he be injured? Prince Regent knew in advance that there were people in Nanqi who wanted to harm Miss Chu. He planned to ruin your wedding on the day of your wedding. Prince Regent knew that you cared about this wedding, so he secretly left the capital to kill these people. He hoped that he could stop them from ruining Miss Chu's wedding. This lowly one has said what he wanted to say. Miss Chu, I won't disturb your wedding. After that person finished speaking, he really wanted to leave. Seeing this, Chu Qiu didn't care about the whispers around her and hurriedly stopped him. Wait, I'll go with you. After saying this, the guests looked at her strangely. Especially Chu Ding, his expression changed on the spot. He hurriedly walked in front of Chu Qiu. He Hui, you're being willful again. I told you to think about it yesterday. Big brother, I'm sorry. I have to go. I have to go. Chu Qiu's eyes were filled with tears. It's my fault. When I come back, you can scold me however you want. After speaking, Chu Qiu looked at Yun Jiling and walked in front of him. I'm sorry. I'm not worthy of you. You should find a better woman. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Qiu threw off the red veil and left. After Chu Qiu's figure disappeared through the door, the guests whispered. Marquis Ning's face was ashen as he apologized with a smile. The expectant smile on Yun Jiling's face was gone. Chu Ding came to him to apologize, but Yun Jiling said, I expected it, but I didn't expect it to be so close. It was my wishful thinking. I should blame myself for coming too late. Chu Ding was very regretful. Yun Jiling was actually a good person. After all, they had known each other for so many years. He said those things to Chu Qiu yesterday because he wanted Chu Qiu to think things through. He didn't want to hurt this good friend of his. He didn't expect that he would still hurt him. Brother Chu, you don't need to blame yourself. This might be fate. Since I can't force it, I won't ask for it. I'll continue to study. In fact, this wedding isn't suitable for me. Yun Jiling said, I will appease my family. They won't blame Chu Qiu. Thank you. Zhou Jin, who had been quietly watching the show, was dumbfounded. The last bow had not been completed. Had the bride run away? Tang Gua pinched Zhou Jin's face. Your Majesty, do you admit defeat? Then I'll peel melon seeds for you when I get back. Zhou Jin said gloomily, pulling Tang Gua's little hand and jumping off the roof. What kind of luck did he have? 10 bets, 10 losses. Could this be the legendary no-luck gamble? In that case, he could only bet with Guo in the future and not with anyone else. On the day of Chu Qiu's wedding, he left in front of everyone. He even said that he wanted Cloud Ridge to find another person who was worthy of him. This became the hottest topic in the capital. Countless people were guessing why Chu Qiu wanted to abandon such a good marriage and immediately leave. What exactly happened? Not long after, news spread that the regent was seriously injured. When Chu Qiu heard this, he hurried over. This time, the people in Beijing were in an uproar. It was so sudden. This news wasn't released by Tang Guo. It was released by Tang Shan. On the day of Chu Qiu's wedding, she also had people present. Naturally, she knew Yun Bingjuan's trusted aide. After making some guesses, she released this news. Chapter 4906. Tang Shan felt that she couldn't stop the general trend, so she could only ruin Chu Qiu's reputation. But she didn't expect that Chu Qiu wasn't someone who cared too much about reputation. She was different from other women. Yun Bingjun was indeed seriously injured. Originally, he didn't need to be seriously injured. He just wanted to use those people from Nanqi to try and see if Chu Qiu would choose him at a critical moment. He succeeded. Now he was lying in the manor. It would probably take him a month to get up. When Chu Qiu saw him on the verge of death, her heart softened and she couldn't bear to leave. She couldn't even refuse Yun Bingjun. If at this time Yun Bingjun proposed to marry her as a co-wife, she would most likely agree. Yun Dan and Yun Xian knew that Yun Bingjun was seriously injured and heard that Chu Qiu had abandoned her past. They were touched by Chu Qiu's feelings and didn't hate her at all. Yun Bingjun was entangled in his feelings, so he didn't hesitate to use his body to test her heart. He was injured all over and had no way to deal with court affairs for the time being. The ministers saw the opportunity and took the opportunity to suggest that Zhou Jin take over the reins. In reality, they just casually mentioned it. If Zhou Jin wasn't willing, they would use this opportunity to play some tricks and let the little emperor see that it wasn't enough to rely on the regent without them. He didn't expect Zhou Jin to agree when he heard this during the morning court session. Zhen also has the same intention. When the ministers heard this, they immediately bowed and shouted, "Emperor is wise." They even decided to give Zhou Jin, the little emperor, a taste of some sweetness. In the future, they wouldn't be willing to return power to Yun Bingjun. After he and Yun Bingjun split, he would be controlled by them. The abacus in their hearts rang loudly. Not long after court was dismissed, Yun Bingjun received news that Zhou Jin was taking over the reins. He lay on the bed and sneered. The little emperor is starting to be disobedient. That's good. Let him see the faces of these ministers. After suffering, the little emperor would naturally be obedient. Yun Bingjun thought so. His subordinates understood Yun Bingjuan's meaning and left. They also thought that without Yun Bingjun, the little emperor would only be controlled by those ministers. His life wouldn't be as comfortable as it was now. Even Chu Qiu on the side thought so. She said, "If you don't care about court affairs, if something happens, you don't have to worry. My men will keep watch. Nothing will go wrong. At most, the young emperor might be badly battered by those courtiers and then come to beg me." Chu Qiu nodded in agreement. "That's true. As long as you're here, the great mist country won't fall into chaos." However, the two of them did not know that Zhou Jin was thinking about all kinds of schemes in his heart. Who would cause trouble for him in the future? How would he deal with them? How would he stuff two more of his people up? I'll go see the regent after I've dealt with those ministers. State affairs come first. Zhou Jin said to Tang Guo without feeling any pain in his conscience. "Guo, come and eat. Jin, eat more. In a few days, you'll have to face those officials head-on. It'll take a lot of energy." For the first 10 days, the officials were very cooperative with Zhou Jin. On the 11th day, they started to cause problems. Zhou Jin was being crafty, refusing to cooperate and objecting to his suggestions. Zhou Jin had come prepared. He explained the pros and cons of his decision, questioned those who were against it, and asked those who were in agreement. The courtiers originally thought that most of them would choose to object. When they raised their hands, they realized that half of them agreed with Zhou Jin's decision. At that time, they were stunned for a moment. Although the little emperor's decision did make some sense, it was definitely not a good decision for the aristocratic families. In order to fight for the aristocratic family's interests, they naturally had to object to this. Why were there so many traitors in court? Chapter 4907. Soon they understood. Wasn't this the person that Yun Bingjun had promoted? As expected, even though Yun Bingjun was seriously injured, he was still in control of the court. But this time they had to resist to the end. First, they didn't want Yun Bingjun to be too proud. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them. Second, this was related to the interests of the aristocratic families. If they took a step back, they would have to take a step back in the future. Lordly, we feel that you are old and can't keep up with the times. Your thinking is too conservative. You actually want to oppose such a policy that benefits the country and the people. Don't you want the people of our great mist country to live a good life? If you don't have foresight and think for the people, how can you be an official? Why don't you quit? We will allow you to retire and return to your hometown today. Zhou Jin said with a smile. Lord Lu, you two. The Empress once told us that if we don't update the news in time, it will be easy to fall behind. What will happen if we fall behind? It's easy to lose your seat. This is a warning to us. The same applies to you. After allowing the typical officials to retire and return to their hometown, Zhou Jin took the opportunity to promote a few more people. That day, Zhou Jin's decision caused a huge uproar. Zhou Jin changed from before. He acted decisively and didn't give anyone a chance to object. The next day, there were officials who threatened to resign, saying that if Zhou Jin didn't take back his order, they wouldn't do it. These officials believed that without them, the court wouldn't be able to change. When that time came, Zhou Jin would know what it meant to struggle. Since all the officials feel that they aren't up to the task and are willing to give up their positions so that more talented people can stand here, we will allow it. Zhou Jin said, We are very grateful for your deep sense of righteousness. For the sake of the great mist country's future, we will reward you with 1,000 pieces of gold. The officials who originally wanted to resign suddenly stretched their feet back. They didn't dare to stand out and plan to wait and see. In the end, they found that the people that Zhou Jin arranged were decisive and swift. They couldn't stop them at all. There was another thing that made the officials very afraid. Those officials who were allowed to retire and return to their hometown all received a box from Zhou Jin. They originally thought that it was a reward of gold and silver, but when they opened it, they found that it was actually a record of their bad deeds. His Majesty said that these matters will be left to the lords to deal with. Qi Qing said with a smile, This is on account of the many years that you have worked hard for. I ask that you all take care of yourselves. Your Majesty didn't make a fuss about it this time, but if there are new ones added to these books, Your Majesty will have to make a fuss about it. There were not many officials who were not greedy. They would more or less have something that could be used against them in the dark. It was impossible to kill all of them. That was why Zhou Jin chose to use this more intimidating method. If these people obtained these, they would definitely spread the news. Eliminating the Qing dynasty could only be done one step at a time. If Zhou Jin really killed them all at once, it would cause a counterattack which would be detrimental to his operation. The little emperor is still too young. Yun Bingjun was recuperating in the courtyard. When he heard that Zhou Jin had replaced a large number of people, he made an evaluation of this matter. Does he really think that the people he promoted will listen to him? And those who were replaced, don't tell me that they won't do anything? Your injuries haven't healed yet. Don't worry about these things for the time being. Chu Qiu interrupted Yun Bingjun's words. Take advantage of this time to properly recuperate and rest for a while. Since everything is in your hands, there's nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 4908. Also, didn't you say you wanted to teach the little emperor a lesson? This time, I hope you can make him understand that the person the Great Mist Kingdom needs the most is you. If you didn't intimidate the court, wouldn't those officials turn the sky upside down? Chu Qiu naturally thought that Zhou Jin was an emperor who only knew how to eat, drink, and play. He didn't have any great talent, but he had some ambition. This big move was just the little emperor growing up and having ideas. He wanted to take back his power while Yun Bingjun was recuperating. But she didn't think that Zhou Jin would succeed. How could it be so easy to control the court? She thought that Zhou Jin would suffer a lot this time. Okay, I'll listen to you. Yun Bingjun threw the letter to the side and held Chu Qiu's hand. Chu Qiu wanted to break free, but because Yun Bingjun was injured, she didn't dare to move too much and let him hold her hand. Qiu, the fact that you can come here shows that you have me in your heart. For me, you were willing to leave on the day of the wedding. Can't you accept me? Since the day Tang Shan made a move on Chu Qiu, Yun Bingjun didn't feel any guilt about marrying Chu Qiu. The little bit of guilt in his heart had completely disappeared because Tang Shan had dealt with Chu Qiu. Isn't it because of that subordinate of yours? He made it sound like you were about to die. How could I not come? Right now, the entire capital is laughing at you. You can't go back to Nanqi. Sure, just promise me. If you're willing, I will marry you as a second wife. We've been together for so many years. Can't we be together? Do you really want to wait until the day I die for you to agree? Actually, Chu Qiu was already moved, but she still felt pressure in her heart. She didn't want to share her husband with others. She had also tried to marry someone else. But when she heard that Yun Bingjun was seriously injured, she left the wedding without hesitation. This meant that she couldn't let go of Yun Bingjun and couldn't fall in love with someone else. She knew that she had become a joke, but she wasn't a real ancient woman and wasn't afraid of others saying that. If she had to do it again, she would still make the same choice. Let me think about it. Chu Qiu said. Also, the princess consort might not be willing. I'll make the decision on this matter. Chu Qiu said. Give me some more time. Also, no matter what the result is, I won't be able to live in the prince's mansion in the future. This was her last stand. Actually, she knew that she could no longer reject Yun Bingjun. She never thought that one day, she would also become a slave to love and share a man with another woman. I won't force you as long as you don't rush to get married. I won't. Chu Qiu had long understood that even if she married someone else, she would still forget about Yun Bingjun. She would not be like before, impulsively choosing someone to marry. Yun Bingjun relaxed and decided to spend more time with Chu Qiu. In the regent's residence, Tang Shan heard Yun Bingjun's subordinates report that his life was not in danger and that he would naturally return after his injury was healed. Her heart turned cold. In addition, Yun Bingjun also sent a message back, informing her that he would marry Chu Qiu as his co-wife. Tang Shan was so angry that her eyes turned black. She had no choice but to congratulate Yun Bingjun. Bitch! What pair for life? Isn't it just stealing someone else's husband? Bitch! Tang Shan cursed in the room and sent her servant far away. Ever since she was betrayed by Mei Yu, she didn't trust anyone around her. When she showed some emotions, she would shut herself in the room to vent. Chapter 4909. I must find a chance to kill Chu Qiu. I must kill her. If Chu Qiu doesn't die, I won't be able to rest easy. This bitch stole my husband and my child. I will never forgive her. Tang Shan said viciously in the room. She wasn't just joking. The next day, she started making arrangements. Chu Qiu was always in the courtyard. She couldn't arrange for an assassin, but she could arrange for someone to poison her. For this matter, she specifically asked for help from the family Tang. The family Tang naturally knew that Chu Qiu was Tang Shan's biggest threat, not only for Tang Shan's benefit, but also for the family Tang. Chu Qiu had to be eliminated. Tang Shan didn't dare to use the people in the residence because she was afraid that Yun Bingjun would find out. The family Tang also had a group of useful people, but she didn't expect them to be used like this. Unfortunately, Chu Qiu had her own halo. The first time she was poisoned was when she was eating pastries. Coincidentally, a stray cat ran in from outside. Chu Qiu saw that the stray cat was very hungry, so she threw a pastry to it. After the stray cat ate it, It foamed at the mouth and died. Chu Chiu was so scared that she knocked over all her pastries. Because she was eating in her room, she didn't want Yun Bingjun to be distracted. So she asked people to hide this matter. She had some people of her own. She immediately sent people to investigate who poisoned her. She guessed that it was people from the southern Qi kingdom. That young duke still didn't want to let her go. This was a debt left by the original owner. She couldn't explain it clearly. After the first failure, Tang Shan didn't give up. She continued to ask people to find a chance to poison her. The second time was in a bowl of ginseng soup. At that time, Chu Chiu was eating it with Yun Bingjun. She didn't know what Yun Bingjun was thinking. He insisted that Chu Chiu feed him. Although Chu Chiu was shy, she still agreed and fed Yun Bingjun the soup in her bowl. Seeing this, the servant girl who poisoned the soup subconsciously knocked over the bowl. If Yun Bingjun died because of this, she and her family would definitely be killed. After the bowl was knocked over, the servant girl hit the wall and died. Investigate. Yun Bingjun looked at everything in front of him and protected Chu Chiu in his arms. Investigate to the end. It's not the first time, Chu Chiu said. Could it be that he still won't let me go? What do you mean it's not the first time? Yun Bingjun asked. Chu Chiu knew that she couldn't hide it from Yun Bingjun and had to deal with this matter. If she didn't deal with it properly, she might really lose her life. As such, she didn't hide it from Yun Bingjun and told him about how she had almost been poisoned. 3 days ago, I was almost poisoned as well. Fortunately, when I was eating pastries, a wild cat ran in. Seeing that it was extremely hungry, I threw a piece to it. The wild cat ate it and was poisoned to death. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Yun Bingjun scolded. Chu Chiu, I was afraid that it would delay your recovery, and I've already arranged for someone to investigate. The next time you encounter something like this, you're not allowed to hide anything. The other party's intentions are so obvious. It seems like they want your life. He wanted Chu Chiu's life, but he seemed to be afraid that he would die. Could it be her? Yun Bingjun's heart sank. He hoped that wasn't the case. He didn't want such an outcome. But the results of the investigation disappointed Yun Bingjun. It really was Tang Shan. Even if Tang Shan and the family Tang did it secretly, if Yun Bingjun really wanted to investigate, he could easily find out. After all, he had been the regent for so many years. He still had the power to do so. Yun Bingjun originally wanted to hide it from Chu Chiu, but Chu Chiu still accidentally overheard it. Chu Chiu didn't say anything and pretended not to know, but she was a bit annoyed that Tang Shan wanted her life again and again. Chapter 49:10. Tang Shan received a letter from Yun Bingjun. She was originally happy, but when she saw the contents of the letter, her smile froze on her face. There were only 8 words in the letter. Don't overdo it, don't do it again. Tang Shan's face was full of sarcasm. Was Yun Bingjun giving her a warning? He found out. Was he warning her not to make a move on that slut Chu Chiu again? She really regretted not making a move earlier. At that time, Yun Bingjun didn't care about Chu Chiu so much. She might have succeeded and there wouldn't be this hidden danger. She regretted it. Mother, I heard that father sent a letter back. Is that right? How are things with father and sister Chu? Yun Dan and Yun Xian's words were like a heavy blow to Tang Shan. A smile appeared on her face. Her face had always been very pale. In the 2 children's impression, her smile had always been like this. The 2 children didn't notice anything. In their eyes, their mother's complexion was always not good. But with pills that could prolong her life, they didn't have to worry too much. Tang Shan wanted to test Yun Dan and Yun Xian's attitude. So she said, Your father said that he wants to marry Miss Chu. What do you think? I think it's pretty good. When father was seriously injured, Sister Chu went to see father on the day of the wedding. It's enough to prove that Sister Chu cares about father. For father, she doesn't even care about her reputation. If father doesn't marry her, Sister Chu won't be able to marry anyone. Yun Dan said. Yun Xian added, Besides, doesn't mother like Sister Chu a lot? We also like to play with her. Mother's health isn't good. With Sister Chu taking care of father, you can easily recover. Tang Shan almost spat out blood. How could these two children think like this? Mother, when will father and Sister Chu come back? Yun Dan continued to ask, her face full of anticipation. She promised me before that she would make some new food, something called a cake. She hasn't fulfilled that promise yet. Now it's good? Sister Chu wants to live with us? I want her to make a cake for me. Yes, I want one too, Yun Xian shouted. Tang Shan only felt her head hurt. She wanted to shove these two children back. Did they know what it meant for Chu Qiu to marry into the family? Do you think it's good to have another concubine? Tang Shan controlled her temper and asked, what's not good about it? Big Sister Chu is very good to us. Whenever there's something good, she'll give it to us. Mother, are you afraid that Sister Chu will bully us? You can rest assured, right? Sister Chu won't bully us. She's not that kind of person. In the eyes of Yun Dan and Yun Xian, taking in concubines was something that existed in this world. Moreover, other than their father, which master didn't have two concubines? Sister Chu was so nice to them. Was she gentle and beautiful? How many did they know? She was definitely different from the concubines of other families. What's more, Sister Chu's status is noble. She's the princess of the southern Qi kingdom. Being a concubine was a little unfair to her. You may leave. As for the specifics, we'll only know when your father returns. Tang Shan was upset. She suddenly remembered that the two children didn't have any idea of being together for a lifetime. She also didn't understand what it meant for Bai Yunbingjun to marry Chu Qiu, because she had set a bad example and planned to let her own sister marry Yun Bingjun. So in their eyes, Yun Bingjun could marry someone else? As long as he treated them well as his mother, she would definitely be happy. What a sin. What a sin. Vertex. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.